Chapter 66. With regards to Jiang Xia's character, Jing Yunjiao could be considered to be in awe. If Jiang Xia was doing it on purpose, then so be it. However, he was born with this kind of self-righteous nature. He didn't even realize what was wrong with his words, or what kind of harm it would bring to others. These scheming words came out of his mouth as if it was nothing out of the ordinary, and he thought that others wouldn't understand. In the past life, Jing Yunjiao and Jiang Xia only got to know each other a few years later. At that time, Jiang Xia had already gone through some training, so his words weren't as annoying as they were now. However, there was still a hint of his true nature hidden within. Especially when he saw Jiang Xia and Xiao Hongye having some sort of argument, his true nature became more and more obvious. Jiang Xia's looks weren't bad, and he didn't have any private interactions with others. When the other students saw him, most of them were him playing basketball or dealing with class matters. Who would have thought that he would speak so bluntly in private? However, even though Jiang Xia didn't seem to mean it, his IQ wasn't that bad. The vile person that Jing Yunjiao was talking about was naturally him. Jing Yunjiao, who are you calling a vile person? He couldn't help but reprimand. Jing Yunjiao coldly laughed. Don't you know it yourself? I say, why are you like this? Jiang Xia was immediately dissatisfied. Just as he was about to continue, a commotion came from the room. Everyone turned around to look. It was a couple and teacher Jin. The couple looked a bit familiar. Jiang Xia even swallowed back his previous words. He stared at them and called out, Uncle Yi, Auntie Yi? Why are you guys dressed like this? The people who came were Yi Qing's parents. Father Yi was wearing a suit, but it was a bit wrinkled. He looked like he was down and out. His body reeked of alcohol and cigarettes, his face was full of stubble, and his hair was greasy. Mother Yi was even more different from her previous glamorous self. She was wearing a supermarket worker's uniform. Now was the beginning of the second year of high school. The students had only known each other for half a year. Even though the students knew that Yi Qing's family was pretty good, they didn't know what her parents did for a living. Only Jiang Xia was different. Yi Qing had mentioned to Jiang Xia before that her father was a boss, her mother was a full-time housewife, and her family was also very wealthy. He had even met Yi Qing's parents twice. At that time, Yi Qing's parents were driving a car worth millions. The father had a successful career, and the mother was also graceful and luxurious. They were clearly different from the other parents. But why was it different from what he remembered? Jiang Xia's innocent question made Father Yi and Mother Yi somewhat embarrassed. This must be Brother Yang and Auntie Yang, right? I'm really sorry. I am Yi Qing's mother. Just now, Teacher Jin has already informed us. My daughter is not sensible and has caused your daughter to suffer. Mother Yi hurriedly placed the fruits she brought in front of the bed and bowed. Father Yang turned around and walked away. Mother Yang's face was still ugly. I don't dare to accept your courtesy. My family's girl has been injured for a few hours, but your family's Yi Qing didn't even show up to take a look. Father Yang coldly said. It's just a conflict between kids. They weren't unreasonable people. If their daughter was fine and the other party's attitude was good enough, then this matter could have been easily settled. But in the end, that Yi Qing didn't even show up. Yi Qing's father was a bit muddle-headed and didn't say anything. Instead, it was Mother Yi who kept apologizing. My family's child is not sensible. I'm afraid she was scared and still hasn't returned home. It's all my fault for not being able to bring her here to apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Chapter 67. Jing Yunjiao felt some sympathy for this woman who was forced to commit suicide by her daughter in his past life. At that time, Yi Qing's mother's story was the talk of the town. Her husband's family took a nosedive, and her husband never recovered. Later on, he even became addicted to gambling. It was all because of her that the family was supported by several part-time jobs, and even had to work hard to pay off debts. Even so, she didn't let her daughter drop out of school, and even under her daughter's insistence, she kept her daughter's face. Although she was able to support the entire family, she couldn't support her daughter's endless plundering. An unreliable husband, and an untrustworthy daughter, directly pushed her to the brink of death. Seeing this woman kneeling and apologizing to others for her daughter, Jing Yunjiao also had mixed feelings. Some people yearn for a mother like this but can't get it, while some people have it but don't cherish it. Under Mrs. Yi's endless apologies, the Yang family's parents seemed to have calmed down a bit, but their mouth still didn't let her off, and kept on talking about how to educate their daughter. Mrs. Yi continued to agree, and didn't dare to retort. As for Mr. Yi, he felt a bit embarrassed, and actually turned around and left. Oh right, Auntie Yi, Yi Qing still owes the hotel some money. Since the hotel owner is here, why don't you go back and settle it with him? After all, it's her treat. Jiang Xia inappropriately reminded her. His pair of eyes curiously looked at Yi Qing's mother, and he also had some plans in mind. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have said this, but he just wanted to see if this Yi family was really as rich as Yi Qing said. Mrs. Yi's face went pale. So it's like this. How much? Not much, only half, so there's still 1,600 left. Jiang Xia added. The other students' faces all turned red. The hotel owner, Li Xiaoyun, raised his eyebrows, and looked at Jiang Xia as if he had just discovered a new continent. His attitude was also quite shocked. There's something wrong with him here. Tilting his head, he pointed at Jing Yunjiao and whispered. Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched, and he held back his laughter. You can say that. Li Xiaoyun smirked and revealed a look of sudden realization. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and looked very eye-catching. The 3 words 1,600 hit Yi Mu's heart fiercely. Her eyes were a little red. She hurriedly put on her pockets, but in the end, she only turned out a few hundred yuan. Seeing everyone watching, she was only one step away from collapse. Auntie Yi, Jiang Xia was just joking. I've already paid for it. If you don't believe me, you can ask this person. Jing Yunjiao pointed at the man beside her. What was his name again? My surname is Li, Li as in dawn, Xiao as in young master, and Li Xiaoyun as in clouds floating in the sky, the man replied with a smile. Yes, Boss Li won't accept it again, Jing Yunjiao added. At the side, Xiao Haiqing's brows furrowed. She stared at Jing Yunjiao in confusion, but when she saw Jing Yunjiao's gentle gaze, she swallowed her words back down. To be honest, even though she hated Yi Qing, it was hard for her to have any ill feelings towards this mother who seemed to be in a panic. Yi Mu's tears immediately fell. She hurriedly placed the few hundred yuan in Jing Yunjiao's hands. I can't let you pay for it. I was in a hurry today, so I didn't bring much. I'll pay you back later. Thank you, little classmate. Jing Yunjiao clearly knew that the reason Yi Mu didn't mention the Yi family's bankruptcy wasn't for her own face, but for Yi Qing. Oh right, the medical fees, Yi Mu suddenly thought of the medical fees and panicked. But before she could finish, Li Xiaoyun interrupted. The fees have already been paid. Chapter 68. No matter how stupid Yi Qing's mother was, she could tell that Jing Yunjiao and Li Xiaoyun saw her financial situation and decided to help her. She was both touched and guilty. Ever since her family went bankrupt, her life had not been easy. For the sake of her daughter, she had endured all the grievances. But now, she realized that the daughter she had always been proud of was not as strong and sensible as she had imagined. This was almost the last straw that broke her back. She even regretted spoiling her daughter so much before. Actually, Mother Yi didn't have many problems with her education before, but it was mainly because of Father Yi. Father Yi's life these past few years had been smooth sailing, and he only had one daughter, so naturally he let Yi Qing do whatever she wanted. As long as Yi Qing asked, he would definitely give it to her. Mother Yi's education was already too late, because Yi Qing knew from a young age that she was the princess of the family. With her father here, even her mother couldn't stop her from getting what she wanted. Thank you guys. When I find my daughter, I'll definitely bring her here to apologize. Mother Yi had tears in her eyes and was speechless. The mistake was already made, yet her daughter didn't even have the courage to admit her mistakes. What else could she do? After Mother Yi finished speaking, Jiang Xia was about to speak, but Jing Yunjiao directly said, "It's not good for us to stay here and affect Tiantian's rest. Auntie Yi, Auntie Yang, we'll all leave first. We'll come back when Tiantian wakes up." Mother Yang nodded. With so many people, It was definitely noisy. Jiang Xia somewhat irritably stared at Jing Yunjiao, who wants to leave. But since he already said that, Li Xiaoyun and Jing Yunjiao even turned around and left. Everyone else also agreed, so he didn't have a chance to refuse. Although they left, Mother Yi, as the mother of the perpetrator, still stayed in the room to take care of her. When Jing Yunjiao and the others left, Jiang Xia couldn't help but say, "Don't you guys think Auntie Yi is weird? And Uncle Yi, he wasn't like this when I saw him before. Also, the Yi family is so rich, yet Auntie Yi only brought a few hundred yuan out? Oh right, the most important thing is what she's wearing. Jiang Xia, I think you're the weirdest." One of the classmates opened his mouth. "That's right. I didn't think you were like this. Although Yi Qing is annoying, what does it have to do with her mother?" Jiang Xia's classmates immediately added. Jing Yunjiao pursed his lips in agreement. Usually, the things that Jiang Xia said about her were just trivial matters. Every time, she pretended not to hear it and let it go. But now, he was being too inconsiderate. "What's wrong with you guys? I didn't say anything wrong. In the past, Yi Qing always pretended to be rich, but now it seems to be fake. I was just afraid that we would all be deceived by her again." Jiang Xia was completely oblivious to the reason why he had angered the crowd. He even felt that the others were behaving strangely. Especially when she saw Jing Yunjiao pursing his lips and smiling, she became even angrier. "Jing Yunjiao, you said that you would pay for the hotel. Don't tell me you're going back on your word after leaving the hotel?" "Of course not." Jing Yunjiao smiled, but his eyes were cold. "But since it's my treat, do I have the right to refuse some people's free food and drink?" "What do you mean? We've all eaten, and you still want us to pay back?" Jiang Xia rolled his eyes, his face full of disdain. Although Yi Qing was puffing himself up at his own cost, he wasn't as stingy as Jing Yunjiao. Jing Yunjiao chuckled and rubbed her hands together. Suddenly, she threw a punch towards Jiang Xia's abdomen. "I'm not going to pay you back, but I can make you spit it out." Chapter 69. Jing Yunjiao's movements were swift. Before the students could react, they saw Jiang Xia clutching his stomach as he bent over and cried out in pain. Jing Yunjiao's expression was frighteningly cold. After throwing a punch, he lifted his leg and fiercely kicked Jiang Xia's back. In an instant, Jiang Xia was caught off guard and fell to the ground with a bang. He quickly crawled away from Jing Yunjiao's feet and rolled a few times in a sorry state. His eyes were almost popping out of their sockets. "Jing Yunjiao, are you crazy?" Jiang Xia gritted his teeth in pain and cursed fiercely. "I've tolerated you for a long time, Jiang Xia. Today, I'm telling you that there's a limit to my tolerance." Jing Yunjiao's gaze was fierce. He took a few steps forward and in the next second, he ruthlessly kicked Jiang Xia's stomach again. In an instant, the surrounding students were dumbfounded. Jing Yunjiao's reputation in fighting was also very strong. Previously, Lu Jiao had found 3 cousins but they all failed to win. They had all heard of it. Hence, at this moment, who would dare to step forward to stop the fight? Especially when Jing Yunjiao had Xiao Haiqing beside him, who was there to join in the fun. Once she saw Jing Yunjiao make a move, she couldn't help but go forward and lift Jiang Xia's legs. Her strength was simply astonishing. "Only like this can he vomit." Xiao Haiqing laughed wildly. Her heart was filled with joy. With the two of them working together, it didn't take long for Jiang Xia to start vomiting dizzily. He vomited until he was dizzy and the surrounding students moved a few steps away in disgust. Jing Yunjiao took a deep breath and tidied up her clothes. She returned to her usual calm and collected self, as if nothing had happened just a second ago. At the side, Li Xiaoyun revealed a look of surprise. He rubbed his shiny leather shoes and gave Jing Yunjiao a thumbs up in appreciation. "Your kung fu is not bad. Where did you learn it from?" Li Xiaoyun came forward and asked curiously. Jing Yunjiao glanced at him and brushed off the dust on his body. "It's a natural reaction to seeing something dirty. It's nothing special." Li Xiaoyun pursed his lips and smiled charmingly. In an instant, the girls beside him couldn't help but blush. However, he didn't notice it and continued to smile like a peach blossom. Today, It's all thanks to your quick reaction that you saved that girl and saved our Fragrant Sea restaurant from trouble. In order to express my gratitude, how about I treat you to a meal? Jing Yunjiao frowned. There's no need. She still had some intuition when it came to judging people. This Li Xiaoyun had the face of a womanizer. It was best to stay away from him. For example, right now, all the female students present were stunned. Wasn't this seducing a minor and committing a crime? Li Xiaoyun's eyes darkened as he sized up Jing Yunjiao. He always felt that this female student was different from the others. Or rather, she had a kind of overly experienced maturity. Coupled with her martial arts and bearing, she didn't seem like an ordinary person. He couldn't help but want to find out more about her. However, when Jing Yunjiao opened her mouth to reject him, Li Xiaoyun's mood sobered up a little. He also felt that he was a little baffled just now. In the past, he had seen many people with special identities and appearances. The girl in front of him was just a 15 or 16-year-old girl who hadn't even matured yet. It wasn't enough to make him curious, right? Immediately, he extinguished his thoughts. At this time, Jiang Xia was almost done vomiting. He struggled to get up from the ground and looked at Jing Yunjiao with resentment. Class monitor, since you've spat out the thing, then let's forget about what happened before. Of course, if you feel unwell, the hospital is right behind you. You can go for a checkup as you wish. But looking at your complexion, it shouldn't be anything serious. If you're framing me, I don't mind paying you some money. But in the future, when you're walking alone at night, I'll have to trouble you to be more careful. If you meet any criminals, that wouldn't be good. Jing Yunjiao spoke leisurely, without a trace of fear. Chapter 70. Jing Yunjiao finally understood that to deal with people like Jiang Xia, she should use a more direct method. Jing Yunjiao's ruthless words were spoken without hesitation. Her dark eyes stared coldly at Jiang Xia. Jiang Xia instantly understood the meaning behind those words and couldn't help but shiver. A threat? A naked threat? Was this telling him that if he complained to the teacher or exaggerated his injuries, Jing Yunjiao would take advantage of the dark and windy night to beat him up again? Jiang Xia was extremely angry and couldn't wait to find trouble with Jing Yunjiao right now. But after thinking carefully, he didn't dare. After all, Jing Yunjiao's ability to beat people up was top-notch. Wasn't there someone who had a conflict with Jing Yunjiao and ended up in a vegetative state for the rest of his life? He shivered. He didn't want to be the next one. Jiang Xia's mouth was fierce and unforgiving, but he was a coward. At this moment, he lowered his head and held his stomach, pretending to be indifferent and trying to find a way out for himself. Jing Yunjiao glanced at him and sneered, then turned around and left with Xiao Haiqing. Yuna, what's wrong? Just as they left the hospital, Jing Yunjiao met grandfather Gan Songbai. The old man was surprised to see her and subconsciously thought that she wasn't feeling well, so he quickly asked. Gan Jinchen was standing beside Gan Songbai. Gan Jinchen glanced at her but pretended not to see her. Grandfather, I'm fine. A classmate of mine was injured, so I came to take a look. Jing Yunjiao hurriedly explained. After she finished speaking, she looked at Gan Jinchen and asked curiously, isn't the exam date not here yet? After all, they had been living under the same roof for a few days. According to Suchu, Gan Jinchen rarely came home even on weekends. Also, she couldn't see any interest in medicine from him, so it was a rare thing for Gan Jinchen to appear here. Gan Jinchen looked at her with a trace of disgust and embarrassment. He turned his head away, which made Jing Yunjiao feel a little confused. Grandpa Gan looked at his grandson and blushed. Yes, he hasn't arrived yet. This kid is looking for me for some personal matters. Oh right, is your classmate's eye injured? Although there were many patients in the hospital today, there were only a few of them who were of this age. Thinking about the rumors in the hospital today, Grandpa Gan was also a little curious. That's right. Jing Yunjiao nodded. I heard from the younger generation that it was fortunate that there was a young girl who helped to take care of it beforehand. Otherwise, most of those eyes would have been crippled. The person who took care of it. Could it be you? Old man Gan revealed an expectant look. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have thought of Jing Yunjiao, but when he thought of the mysterious master behind Jing Yunjiao, he felt that only Jing Yunjiao could do such a thing. This girl gave him a very strange feeling. It was as if she was familiar with medicine, but also as if she was a green and inexperienced newbie who couldn't be sure. Gan Jinchen was a little surprised, but obviously, he didn't believe it before he got an answer. He heard that Jing Yunjiao had a bad reputation, so when he found out that the person who moved into their apartment was Jing Yunjiao, he was very unhappy. He felt that his grandfather was deceived by this girl. Also, when she first moved in, she didn't come back in the middle of the night. It was obvious that she was up to no good. It was exactly as the rumors said. What if she led his cousin astray? As for the purpose of his visit today, it was very simple. It was to ask his grandfather to kick her out of the house. No matter what, he couldn't live with a girl with a bad character. It was indeed me. The situation was too urgent, so I could only do that. But I will pay attention in the future. Before I have the qualifications to practice medicine, I will try not to do anything. Jing Yunjiao nodded, expressing his attitude. Chapter 71. Gan Songbai was a responsible doctor. This time, the situation was a bit special, so he might allow her to make an exception. But in the future, she would definitely not be able to treat people casually. After all, she didn't have a medical license. If something went wrong, no one would be able to bear the consequences. It would also affect her life. Jing Yunjiao took the initiative to express her attitude. Gan Songbai was also relieved and didn't reprimand her. Gan Jinchen, who was at the side, didn't believe her. You really saved someone? He and Suchu had been in contact with medicine since they were young. Even now, they still didn't have the qualifications to treat people. At most, they knew some medicinal herbs and knew some pharmacology. They never dared to use those prescriptions casually. Jing Yunjiao, a layman, actually dared to. Jing Yunjiao saw Gan Jinchen's hostility. If it was someone else, she wouldn't even care, but Grandpa Gan had helped her a lot. For Grandpa's sake, Jing Yunjiao didn't want to bicker with him. How can this be fake? Xiao Haiqing's face was full of pride. I know you. You're Gan Jinchen, one of the top 10 school hunks in school. I heard that your personality was the most gentle and knew medicine. But now, the rumors don't seem to be true. Gan Jinchen's face froze and was a bit embarrassed. After Xiao Haiqing finished speaking, Jing Yunjiao pulled her and said, "Don't mind her." Haiqing said what she wanted to say. "Grandpa, we'll leave first." Gan Jinchen was even more annoyed. She said what she wanted to say. Did that mean that she felt that what the girl said was the truth? Jing Yunjiao didn't care about him. She said goodbye to Gan Songbai and the two left in a flash. "Grandpa, what prescription did she use to save someone?" Gan Jinchen curled his lips and asked sullenly. Gan Songbai looked at his grandson's appearance and couldn't help but laugh. He even felt a bit of schadenfreude. This grandson of his usually didn't listen to anyone. On the surface, he looked warm and easy to get along with, but in reality, he was a thorn in the side and arrogant. He had a problem with Jing Yunjiao, but Jing Yunjiao ignored him. He was afraid that he would not be able to sleep for a few days. After a dry cough, Gan Songbai stroked his beard and said, "Speaking of that prescription, it's quite simple, but in a moment of desperation, others may not be able to think of it. Moreover, that little girl's forehead was bleeding non-stop at that time. Most doctors would overlook the injury in her eyes. Yunjiao, that girl, is a good material for studying medicine. Chen you're living under the same roof as her, so you'll have more chances to interact with her. In the future, you must consult her more." Gan Songbai purposely added. As soon as he said this, Gan Jinchen's face turned red and he turned to leave. Gan Songbai wasn't annoyed. He chuckled in the back. In the past, it was only his grandson who made others angry. Today's situation was really rare. Jing Yunjiao and Xiao Haiqing did not go far. They found a coffee shop near the hospital and sat down. Through the glass window, they could see the entrance of the hospital. Originally Xiao Haiqing didn't understand, but when the scene was in front of her eyes, she immediately understood. She was looking for Yi Qing. Although Yi Qing escaped, she caused such a big mess. Most of the time, She would be hesitant to appear near the hospital. What if she doesn't come? Xiao Haiqing was also a bit worried. She had never seen someone more selfish than Yi Qing. Letting her own mother take care of everything while she silently hid. She was only 15 years old. In a few more years, wouldn't her personality be even scarier? The Yi family went bankrupt. The money she had was from the hotel. This amount of money is not enough for her. How could she not ask Auntie Yi for some? Anyways, there's nothing to do right now. Let's wait and see. Jing Yunjiao stirred her cup, and the bitter taste of coffee hit her face. Chapter 72. Xiao Haiqing felt that Jing Yunjiao was too steady. No matter what the situation was, he was always able to control his emotions well. Take today's incident as an example. All the students were panicking except for her. Just now, when he was dealing with Jiang Xia, although he looked angry, he still had a lot of things to consider. If he was really angry, he might have even crippled Jiang Xia. He wouldn't have been able to accurately calculate the situation and escape unscathed after beating someone up. Oh right, who did you learn your medical skills from? That grandpa from before. Xiao Haiqing's hand paused as she suddenly remembered. Although they didn't know each other before, Jing Yunjiao had never revealed the fact that he knew medical skills. Today's method was too shocking. No, I learned it from a mysterious old man that I know. Jing Yunjiao's words weren't considered a lie. The medical skills in her space and the jade were all left behind by that old senior, Jing He. Even though he was no longer around, she still inherited his medical skills. She couldn't just say that it was taught by someone else. When Xiao Haiqing heard this, she almost spat out the coffee in her mouth. Mysterious old man, don't tell me that there's still a legendary hidden expert in this era. I didn't study much, don't lie to me. Xiao Haiqing didn't believe him at all. How could there be such a mysterious person in this world? Jing Yunjiao shrugged his shoulders. Anyway, it's true. My martial arts and medical skills were all taught by him. Xiao Haiqing was suspicious, but she felt that Jing Yunjiao wouldn't lie to her. She stared at Jing Yunjiao for a long time. Then, are your medical skills very high now? Xiao Haiqing asked. Jing Yunjiao shook his head. He taught me a lot of things. I spend a lot of time memorizing them every day. Right now, I only have some basic knowledge. However, if I encounter an illness that isn't too troublesome, I can still think of a prescription. There were a total of 99 pieces of spirit jade. So far, she had only absorbed one piece, and one piece contained thousands of books. Because the spirit jade was already in her mind, she only needed to recall and understand it once, and then she would be able to thoroughly master it. Coupled with the space's 5 times speed, her growth every day was very astonishing, almost equivalent to rapid progress. However, there were still a lot of unknowns, so she didn't want to exaggerate. Xiao Haiqing's eyes lit up. Yunjiao, you're really my idol. In the future, if I have a headache or fever, I'll have to rely on you. Xiao Haiqing picked up her coffee cup and toasted with Jing Yunjiao. Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but smile bitterly in her heart. Speaking of idols, Xiao Haiqing was the person she admired the most in her previous life. The two of them chatted for a while as the sun set outside the window. They only saw Mother Yi hurriedly walk out of the hospital. The two of them immediately looked around, only to see Yi Qing in a corner of the hospital with a face full of panic. Seeing Mother Yi, she nervously looked around, but didn't know what to say. Mother Yi's expression seemed to be a bit angry, as if she was arguing. Not long after, Yi Qing began to look for something on Mother Yi's face. Mother Yi's eyes were filled with tears, and in a fit of anger, she slapped her. Seeing this scene, the two of them immediately paid the money and chased after her. Jing Yunjiao was too lazy to care about Yi Qing's family matters, but this time young Tiantian's injury was indeed partly because of her, so she couldn't just ignore it. Mom, how could you hit me? Even my dad didn't hit me. Yi Qing's voice was trembling, but more than that, she was angry and confused. Mother Yi cried miserably, "Daughter, why don't you come with Mom and apologize? Tiantian, that girl, is fine. As long as you sincerely apologize, they won't blame you. At most, you'll just have to pay some money. Even if Mom dies of exhaustion, I'll still make up for it. You're willing to compensate others, why won't you give me the money? Yi Qing covered her face and also cried. Chapter 73. Yi Qing cried miserably, but it didn't look like she did anything wrong. Instead, it looked like she was wronged. My classmates definitely know that our family is bankrupt. If I go back and apologize, even if they don't do anything to me, I won't be able to take it. In the future, when I walk in school, they will point at me, and I will be worse than those poor kids. Mom, I don't want to lose face. Give me some money. At worst, I'll go far away and never come back. If you don't want me to leave, then let me transfer schools. With so much debt, when can we pay it all back? Let's go, we don't need to pay it back anymore. Yi Qing said while crying. Just thinking about how her birthday party was ruined, she felt like the sky was falling down. Yang Tiantian became like that. What will her classmates think of her? Mother Yi looked at her daughter with tears in her eyes. There was a strange feeling. What was her daughter like before? At home, she was gentle and sensible like a princess. When did she become a demon? Demon? Mother Yi was shocked. She didn't know why she thought of her daughter like that. Mother Yi's expression gradually became cold. How can you say something like that? What did I teach you since you were young? You have to take responsibility for your mistakes. So what if you have a lot of debt? Mom never asked you to earn money to pay it back. You continue to be a good student, get into a good university, and live happily for the rest of your life. Those debts have nothing to do with you. How does it have nothing to do with me? Yi Qing immediately roared. In the past, our neighbors looked at us with envy. What about now? They pity me. I hate that kind of pity. It's so embarrassing. Mother Yi's whole body shook. She suddenly felt all the strength in her body disappear. Why was she so insistent? Her husband was unreliable, so after receiving a blow, he simply gave up. Her daughter was also like this. Then what was the use of her hard work? Her body was on the verge of collapse, but Yi Qing still didn't repent. She reached out and grabbed her clothes. Mom, just tell me, where is our family's money? Where is it hidden? She was so rich before, so it's impossible that she didn't have anything left now. It must have been hidden away in fear of others finding out. Mother Yi only felt dizzy. Her sight focused, and her daughter's face made her feel fear. The moment she fell, Jing Yunjiao helped her up. Jing Yunjiao, why are you here? Who told you to come over? Yi Qing saw the person who came. Not only did she not notice Yi Mu's situation, she even became worse. Jing Yunjiao now even more clearly understood why such a strong person like Auntie Yi could be forced to commit suicide in the previous life. Yi Qing normally pretended to be quiet and sensible, but in reality, she had inherited her father's bad habits. Unable to take a blow, she even became selfish due to years of spoiling. It's none of my business if you want to run away from home, but you can't do this to Aunt Yi, Jing Yunjiao said coldly. Who do you think you are? It's nothing. It's just that she still owes me some money. As a debtor, I have to ensure that she won't be unable to repay the debt because of being oppressed and hurt by others. Is there a problem? After all, it was a matter between the mother and daughter. Jing Yunjiao couldn't intervene, so he casually found an excuse. Although it was said to be a debt, in fact, Yimu only owed her 1,000 yuan. She was not prepared to take the money. But when Yi Qing heard this, her face went pale. Because her family owed too much money, she didn't even think about why Jing Yunjiao would become one of the creditors. Chapter 74. Yi Qing only felt that he had lost all face, especially in front of the people he hated. He felt that his humble self-esteem had nowhere to hide. It was exposed and dissipated completely. Yi Mu was still a bit dizzy, but slowly recovered. Disappointment and despair coexisted in her eyes, and her will was about to be worn out. Going from being rich to being in debt was something she herself couldn't accept. But before, she had a reason to persevere, but now, the reason was a bit far-fetched. What the hell do you want to do? Jing Yunjiao, why do you have to go against me? Yi Qing angrily said. Jing Yunjiao looked at her sarcastically. Don't you feel that you're lying? I've never offended you. It's you who listed me as your imaginary enemy and targeted me everywhere, right? I've already been kind to you, but you still ask me what I want to do. Don't you think it's funny? You reach out to your parents for money, but have you ever thought about how much you owe them? You think it's shameful, but in my opinion, having a daughter like you is the most shameful thing in your mother's life. Jing Yunjiao wasn't a saint, and didn't think of using moral coercion. She just felt that a person should have the most basic conscience. Living in the Qiao family for 15 years, Yi Qin was polite and alienated to her. It could be said that what Yi Qing had was something she couldn't get, which was why she was so angry. Yi Mu waved her hand. My adopted daughter didn't teach, she deserved it. No one deserved it. Auntie Yi, she's hurting people now, but not to the point of killing people. But if you let her be, no one can imagine what will happen in the future. You're her biological mother, not her nanny slave. Today you let her ignore you, then you have to be prepared for her to be trampled on because of her mistakes in the future. Speaking of which, if you still think it's all your fault, then it's not strange that your daughter is like this. Jing Yunjiao's voice was simple and cold, and said with cold eyes. What parents give their children, then that's what they get in return. Yi Mu always felt that it was her fault for not teaching Yi Qing well, so Yi Qing naturally felt that she was the one who was wronged. Jing Yunjiao's voice, word by word, hammered Mama Yi's heart fiercely. If it was in the past, she would have just listened to these words and let it go. However, she had suffered too many blows recently, especially at this moment. So even if it was just a few simple words from Jing Yunjiao, it was as if they were engraved in her mind, unable to be erased. Her expression slowly became clear. Yi Qing was only 15 years old, she hadn't even lived through half of her life. She couldn't let her be so selfish for the next 50 years. Pushing away Jing Yunjiao's hand, Yi Mu's face was a little serious. You go with me to apologize. Yi Qing glared. I'm not going. Slap. In an instant, Mother Yi slapped him. You have to go even if you don't want to. Mom. I hate you. I want to leave this damned place. Don't ever think of seeing me again, Yi Qing threatened. Then leave. It's good that you left. I'll divorce your father immediately and remarry. My life will still be bright in the future. Without a burden like you, I'll live a better life than anyone else. Also, you stole the family's money. As soon as you leave, I'll immediately go to the police and let the police teach you how to behave. Yi Mu shouted herself hoarse. When she just opened her mouth, there was still some panic expression, but it was instantly hidden. Especially when she saw Yi Qing's scared expression, Yi Mu felt that she did the right thing. Jing Yunjiao also had a face of surprise. He didn't think that Auntie Yi would make up her mind so quickly. However, it was also true that a strong woman like her would be able to survive regardless of everything if she was given a reason. Chapter 75. After Mother Yi finished speaking, her originally weak steps became firm. She took a big stride forward, reached out, and grabbed the bag in Yi Qing's arms. Without saying anything, she took out all the money inside. Over 1,000 yuan, for their family now, is not a small number. Little classmate, thank you for helping me out at the hospital today. This is the money Auntie owes you, I'll return it to you. Mother Yi took out 1,000 yuan and stuffed it into Jing Yunjiao's pocket. Yi Qing's eyes were wide open, unable to believe this scene. Mom, are you crazy? Why are you giving her money? Pa, this time, Mother Yi's slap was even more straightforward than before. Even Xiao Haiqing on the side was gritting her teeth, feeling the pain on her face, but other than pain, it was even more satisfying. Yi Qing was spoiled rotten before, and still thought that she was a rich missy. She didn't understand her own mother at all, and couldn't see the truth. Now that Mother Yi is so powerful, Yi Qing probably won't be able to make any waves in the future. However, Mother Yi still loves her daughter, so wasn't she forced to be so strict? She was probably also worried that Yi Qing would be like what Jing Yunjiao said, getting worse and worse and being abused by others. After Mother Yi finished slapping, seeing Yi Qing's red eyes, she directly scolded, "You still have the face to cry. Come with me to the hospital to apologize. If you don't have any sincerity, then don't eat when you get home. Go kneel and reflect." Mother Yi's mood was more complicated than anyone else's. Did she feel pain? Pain. But she also hated her daughter's incomprehension, hated her husband's cowardice and uselessness, so she had to change. Only to see her grab Yi Qing's arm, pull her to her side, and drag her to the hospital step by step. Yi Qing kept saying that she wanted to run away from home, but in reality, if she didn't have tens of thousands of yuan, she wouldn't dare. And now, even the little money she had left on her was taken away. She had no confidence, and suddenly felt that her life was over. Under Mother Yi's unyielding force, Yi Qing was dragged to Yang Tiantian's bed. At this time, Yang Tiantian had already woken up. Seeing Yi Qing, she directly turned her head. Instead, she said to Jing Yunjiao, "I'm sorry," before helping Yi Qing go against you. "Also, thank you for helping me." Jing Yunjiao just pulled the corner of his mouth into a smile, and considered this chapter over. Apologize. Mother Yi was behind Yi Qing and actually kicked her calf. How could Yi Qing have thought that her mother would do this? In a moment of carelessness, he knelt down with a peng sound. He was in so much pain that tears were about to fall. His face was pale, and he felt that he had lost all his face. She actually knelt down to Yang Tiantian. With so many people watching, they must be laughing at her in their heart. She struggled to get up, but unfortunately, Auntie Yi twisted her neck from behind. Apologize quickly. In the blink of an eye, the skin under Yi Mu's hand was twisted out of a red mark. Mom. Let go. I'm in so much pain. Yi Qing suddenly cried in pain and howled. But the more she cried out in pain, the more Yi Mu used force. You have to apologize if you do something wrong. If you can't open your mouth, then kneel here today, tomorrow, or in the future. When the young parents heard this, they were also shocked. They always felt that this Yi family woman had changed a bit after going out for a while. Compared to before, she looked a bit more fierce. Especially when she mentioned her daughter, she was mostly helpless. But now, she was vicious and strict. Yi Mu had made up her mind. Not long after, Yi Qing couldn't take it anymore. I was wrong, okay? Chapter 76. Yang Tiantian also wasn't a heartless girl. Seeing Yi Qing admit her mistake, she didn't care if she was sincere or not, but for Auntie Yi's sake, she didn't argue with her. After Yang Tiantian's condition stabilized, Jing Yunjiao also returned home. But before he left, he went to the hotel to pay for the meal. And on the other side, Auntie Yi was also responsible enough. She used the rest of the money to buy some supplements. As long as Yi Qing opened her mouth to say something immature, she would scold and beat her. When she returned home at night, Yi Qing's face was already swollen like a pig's head. Go back to school on Monday. After you go back, be a good boy. Don't cause trouble, don't offend anyone. If you can't do it, then don't go home and starve to death on the street. Auntie Yi angrily scolded, then looked at the messy house. In the future, when I go out to work, you need to do these chores well. Cooking and washing clothes, you can't fall behind. Under Yi Qing's shocked and wronged eyes, Auntie Yi rushed back into the house and dragged out the man who was sleeping on the bed. You don't want to go out and find a job, right? Then don't eat anymore. After Sunday, go get a divorce. Before, even if Auntie Yi wasn't gentle, her words were still polite. Even at home, she had the appearance of a virtuous wife. But now, she was more like a shrew. However, this appearance was clearly much better than the gentle admonishment from before. Yi Qing's father was half awake from his drunken stupor. He stared at the woman who had shared the bed with him for more than 10 years, and thought he was seeing things. Of course, he didn't want to get a divorce. The house he was living in was a dowry given to him by Auntie Yi's family many years ago. It was the only place for the three of them to stay. And his villa had already been sold to pay off the debt. If he got a divorce, then he would definitely end up on the streets. Auntie Yi also didn't really expect this man to find a job, but she didn't want to see him drunk every day. And when Yi Qing saw her most respected father being scolded, her courage became a bit smaller. Under her mother's pressure, she washed and cooked for the first time in her life. What she didn't know was that this was just the beginning. From that day onwards, her gentle mother seemed to have completely disappeared without a trace, replaced by a strong and ruthless woman. She was afraid of embarrassing herself in school, so this woman forced her to do it. She was no longer wearing beautiful and lovely clothes. She was only wearing ordinary street stall goods. When she went out, she no longer took a taxi to show her face. Instead, she rode a worn-out bicycle. Clang 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 sounds made her unable to sleep at night. Jing Yunjiao naturally wouldn't pay attention to what Yi Qing's life was like. It was just that on Monday, when she saw her classmates keeping a respectful distance from Yi Qing, as well as her silent attitude, that was why she was surprised. Moreover, Yi Qing seemed to have received Auntie Yi's special education. Every time he saw her, he immediately avoided her like she was a snake or scorpion, which saved him the trouble of tit for tat from before. Her life suddenly became very quiet. Every day, she would go back and forth between the 2 o'clock and 1 o'clock. On Saturday, she would go to Uncle Shu's place as promised. Her life was very fulfilling. The only other place that was different was Gan Jinchen. Ever since he met her at the hospital, his eyes looking at her became more and more suspicious. Every time he saw Suchu getting close to her, he would immediately move Suchu away. Like a mother hen protecting her young, Jing Yunjiao found it a bit funny. 10 days later, the small apartment that the three lived in was neatly tidied up and welcomed the examiner, Grandpa Gan. The once-a-month medical exam time was here. Chapter 77. Normally, Gan Songbai wouldn't even come to the apartment where the three of them lived. Now that he arrived, he only saw Suchu and Gan Jinchen's nervous expressions, as if they were facing a great enemy. After Gan Songbai entered, he scanned the living room and saw several medical books arranged neatly on the table. He secretly shook his head. Too neat. The order of the medical books was obviously arranged randomly. If they were read every day, the depth of the medical books would definitely have some pattern. Moreover, his granddaughter and grandson's faces were pale, as if their blood wasn't flowing well. They were a bit too nervous. After reading a lot of books, one's heart would naturally have a gully. If they had strength and confidence, then they would naturally have a calm attitude, just like Jing Yunjiao. Gan Jinchen's gaze swept past Jing Yunjiao, but he snorted disdainfully. This girl was really ignorant and fearless. She probably felt that she wasn't Grandpa's biological granddaughter, so she wasn't afraid of this kind of exam. However, when she returned and scored a 0, she would know that Grandpa absolutely wouldn't allow anyone to fool him in the field of medical skills. You all sit down. Gan Songbai sat across from the three of them and said. He took out a form in his hand. Jing Yunjiao glanced at it. It should be used to record the three's results. Grandpa, recently the homework has been really heavy, don't make it too difficult. Moreover, it's cousin's first time taking the exam. She hasn't even learned medical skills. You should at least give her some face, right? Suchu winked at her grandpa and pleaded. Gan Songbai's old face unconsciously moved. His beard curled up, but he didn't say the words in his heart. Hasn't learned medical skills? Jing Yunjiao had a master who was more powerful than him behind her. Looking at his grandson's look of disdain for Jing Yunjiao, Gan Songbai helplessly shook his head. Who was the real deal? Only after a competition would they know. I believe in your Yunjiao girl's strength, so this time the exam will be on medicine, medicinal properties, and case studies. Gan Songbai didn't leave any face. When Gan Jinchen and Suchu heard this, they became even more restless. Grandpa, didn't we only test the knowledge of medicinal herbs before? Why is it so difficult this time? The Gan family was considered to have a long history of medicine, but the two of them were not very interested in it. Therefore, they did not have much ability in the field of medicine. Even after studying for 10 years, they only knew the basic knowledge of pharmacology. Every time they took an exam, they had to guess the questions based on old man Gan's thoughts. But this time, wasn't the things being tested a little too broad? Especially when there were so many cases. Who knew which one the old man would mention? When I was your age, I could already try to write prescriptions. You guys, on the other hand, haven't even learned the basics. The old man snorted. All right, the exam starts now. Don't talk too much. Jing Yunjiao pursed his lips and held a pen and paper in his hand, ready to answer at any time. The first piece of spirit jade had been completely integrated yesterday, so the basics were definitely not a problem. Moreover, with the addition of the second piece in his mind, his knowledge reserve was a lot more complete. Don't look at how there were 99 spirit jade trees. In reality, it was all-encompassing. There was health preservation, food therapy, and martial arts. In reality, it was all the knowledge and memories of the old senior from the past 300 years. It seemed like she was absorbing them piece by piece, but these things were directly passed down and forcefully stuffed into her mind. Moreover, the contents of that piece of spirit jade was actually more than the medical knowledge of some average young doctors. It was just that Jing Yunjiao had never studied medicine before and had never interacted with other people. She still carefully thought that she was just a beginner. Chapter 78. Most of the national healers had studied for decades, so Jing Yunjiao's humble attitude was normal. Everything in the spirit jade couldn't be underestimated. If she were to extract everything from her brain and memorize it word by word, she would need more than 10 years to comprehend a single piece. Jing Yunjiao was very lucky. The things that the senior left behind could be directly absorbed into her brain and changed her life. The first test is to test your eyesight. Gan Songbai said concisely. He took out 3 different photos from his chest and placed them in front of the 3 people. The photo in front of Jing Yunjiao was of a woman in her 40s. Her face was full of wrinkles and her eyes didn't have much spirit. From a medical point of view, Jing Yunjiao frowned. The knowledge that she had absorbed naturally appeared in her mind. She couldn't help but narrate, "This woman's eyes don't have any spirit. The whites of her eyes are yellow. It's like there's a yellow substance attached to the whites of her eyes. It should be a bile metabolism disorder or bile leakage. It's commonly seen in acute jaundice, infectious hepatitis, gallbladder, bile duct inflammation, calculus, roundworms, tumors, etc. As for the specific situation, it's a bit arbitrary to rely on a photo. This woman's age isn't young. After reaching middle age, it's normal for the whites of her eyes to bulge with yellow spots." Gan Songbai pretended to ponder and asked in a low voice. Jing Yunjiao shook her head. "If it's due to age, the yellow spots caused by fat accumulation will be more inclined to the location of the eye fissure. This woman's is obviously more uniform. Also, her skin color is obviously different from normal people. Bile leakage will generally infiltrate the skin, causing the skin to turn yellow. It's still very easy to distinguish." Gan Songbai listened and nodded. He put a tick on Jing Yunjiao's position on the form in his hand. Gan Jinchen's eyes widened. "It's a lie, right? It must be a fluke, or she has a relative or friend who just happened to be sick. It must be like this, no doubt." Gan Jinchen immediately comforted herself. She lowered her head to look at the photo in her hand. It was a very beautiful woman. Her face was slightly red and looked very pleasant. But no matter how you looked at it, you couldn't see anything wrong with her. Staring at the photo, Gan Jinchen blushed. Grandpa couldn't be trying to introduce the beautiful woman in the photo to him, right? No, Grandpa is still very serious. "But what is that?" Gan Jinchen frowned. After a while, he suddenly raised his head. "Grandpa, is she having a fever?" Gan Songbai's old face trembled. "How can you tell?" As a stubborn old man, Gan Songbai always spoke in a genteel manner. It was just that he had the temperament of someone who saved the world and was also a national healer, so others couldn't find anything wrong with his words. Instead, they felt respect for him, right? Ever since he was young, he felt that medical skills were very magical and wanted to be a doctor. However, every time he memorized those strange pharmacology, he couldn't help but feel sleepy. "Yunjiao girl, you say it." Gan Songbai handed the photo to Jing Yunjiao and deliberately said. Jing Yunjiao was stunned. But when she saw Gan Jinchen's unconvinced expression, she couldn't help but feel a trace of evil. She stared at the photo for a while and said, "She should have an acute fever. It's not wrong to say that it's a fever, but it shouldn't have anything to do with tuberculosis." Chapter 79. Jing Yunjiao was a man in his 20s in his previous life. Gan Jinchen was only a 16-year-old child. Wasn't it easy to guess what he was thinking? He just thought that the woman in the photo had a serious illness, so he thought that Grandpa Gan's questions were not simple. That was why he mentioned tuberculosis. How can you be sure that it's not related? What if a normal person's complexion should be slightly yellow, rosy, and lustrous, but this girl's complexion is flushed? Something is obviously wrong. Look at her hair, it's tied up beautifully. Although her clothes are thick, they match beautifully. This kind of girl cares a lot about her appearance, so she used makeup to cover up the sores on her lips that aren't too serious. However, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. If you look closely at the skin color of her lips, you'll find that there's something different about her. Moreover, she's wearing a lot of clothes to cover up the rashes on her body. You'll know if you look a little below her neck, you can still see a little of the rashes. Gan Jinchen's face turned red. He was a boy. How could he stare there? Although the other party's clothes were not revealing at all, it was impossible to look at the flesh exposed at the edge of the clothes. Also, tuberculosis usually shows red cheekbones on both sides, especially in the afternoon. If you want to confirm the diagnosis, you need to know if the other party has any other discomfort. Jing Yunjiao added another sentence. When Jing Yunjiao finished, Gan Jinchen already wanted to find a hole to hide in. But he refused to admit that it was shameful. He pretended not to care and said, I thought too much about this question. Chu Chu, it's your turn to answer. Su Chu glared at her cousin and looked at Grandpa Gan nervously. She pointed to the photo in her hand and whispered, this person's chest is cylindrical. The front and bottom of the rib arch is inclined upwards, and the intercostal space is widened. It is mostly seen in patients with bronchial asthma, chronic bronchitis, and other emphysema. After that, Su Chu looked at Grandpa Gan's serious face and was about to cry. It can't be wrong, right? Grandpa Gan looked so scary. Grandpa Gan's eyes were still faint, which made Su Chu even more uneasy. She carefully watched him write on the form. When the red pen outlined the outline, she suddenly jumped up. Great! I got it right. Woo-woo, this is too difficult. Luckily, Su Chu was halfway through her sentence when she suddenly realized that something was wrong. She immediately changed her words. Luckily, I study hard. Yesterday, he had glanced at this question in the book. At that time, he was bored and looked at the cylindrical chest in the book. He was stunned for a while. Otherwise, who would remember such a remote thing? No matter what, he had answered the question correctly, and the old man was a little relieved. However, his expression towards his own grandson, Gan Jinchen, was not so kind. Even Gan Jinchen himself could not sit still. After all, his two younger sisters had done better than him. No matter what, he would lose face. The second question, write down the medicinal properties of these 100 kinds of medicinal herbs. The old man took out 3 test papers from the bag and said, competing in medicinal herbs. Gan Jinchen's eyes lit up. He was an expert in this field. He quickly took the test papers and looked a little more determined. Jing Yunjiao also took the test papers and glanced at them. He already had confidence in his heart. Not to mention the spirit jade, the strange old man, Grandpa Shu, gave her tasks every week that were more complicated than this. According to Grandpa Shu, if she did not even know the appearance, age, and use of the medicinal herbs, how reliable could the things she made be? Chapter 80. Compared to the first question, the second question was much easier for Gan Jinchen and Su Chu. However, Gan Song Bai intentionally increased the difficulty, so the 100 herbs on the test paper were not very common, causing the two to rack their brains. However, when the two were only halfway through, they saw Jing Yunjiao put away the pen and handed the test paper back. Gan Jinchen was surprised. Finished again? Could it be that after holding back for so long, he couldn't write anything and handed in a blank test paper? Thinking like this, he calmed down a bit and continued to answer the questions. After another half an hour, he finally finished. However, at this time, Gan Song Bai had already finished marking Jing Yunjiao's test paper. He saw the clean words neatly arranged on the paper. Grandpa Gan didn't leave any marks, but instead filled in the corresponding form with 100. Gan Jinchen's eyes almost popped out. Almost instantly, he snatched Jing Yunjiao's test paper and looked at it clearly from top to bottom. How did you answer it? These herbs are very rare. Gan Jinchen didn't care about his face and asked with a face full of surprise. Jing Yunjiao shrugged his shoulders. I learned it before. She had the space cheating device, 5 times the time. Usually, she would rest in the space at night. One night was equivalent to 2 days in the outside world. It didn't seem long, but if she tried hard to memorize, her efficiency would be much higher than others. Jing Yunjiao's handwriting was delicate and handsome. The tip of the pen was sharp and unrestrained without losing its firmness. It was pleasing to the eye. In her previous life, her handwriting wasn't that good, but after she dropped out of school, she had nothing to do at night. She would secretly practice to relieve the unwillingness in her heart. Also, when she was in prison, her mind was almost completely focused on her handwriting. Therefore, her handwriting looked somewhat wild and unrestrained. It could be considered her own style. If Gan Jinchen's mood was disdain a moment ago, then at this moment, it had completely turned into depression. He studied medicine from elementary school until now. His medical skills were still half-baked. Unexpectedly, even Jing Yunjiao couldn't compare to him. Grandpa, you don't need to take the test anymore. I admit defeat. After speaking, he directly got up and returned to the house. Peng. He closed the door. This brat has a temper. Gan Songbai stroked his beard. Although he said that, his heart was incomparably happy. Yunjiao girl, accompany your grandfather to see a doctor on Sunday. The basics are important, but experience is even more important. You're still young, take this opportunity to learn more. Only then will your skills grow faster. I understand, Grandpa. Jing Yunjiao was very cooperative. She had a strong interest in medicine. Since the old man was giving her an opportunity, she naturally had to cherish it. The old man's goal for this exam was to deal a blow to his grandson and not let him be arrogant and complacent. Now that he had achieved his goal, he only lectured him a little. That night, Gan Jinchen practically couldn't sleep for the entire night. Whenever he thought about how he looked down on Jing Yunjiao recently, he would feel his face burning with pain. He couldn't explain what he was feeling in his heart. As for his cousin Suchu, it was even more exaggerated. She had practically listed Jing Yunjiao as her idol. When she opened the door early in the morning, Jing Yunjiao suddenly realized that Gan Jinchen, who had always left early, was actually moving slowly. His eyes still looked as if he couldn't contain her, but his expression was a little strange. Let's go to school together. We can check each other's homework on the way. Gan Jinchen braced himself. With a face full of arrogance, his eyes looked elsewhere. His attitude was simply as if he was doing a favor. Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched. Her grades were first in the entire school. The degree of perfection of her homework was comparable to a textbook. Every time the teacher marked her homework, they would just sweep through it and use it as a model. Did she still need to check it? However, since the little wimp already said it, Jing Yunjiao still gave him face, okay. At this moment, Gan Jinchen still didn't know that he was looking for trouble again. Chapter 81. Jing Yunjiao's homework was written very neatly, as if it had been engraved on. There wasn't a single mistake in it from beginning to end. Gan Jinchen was dumbfounded. His grades were one of the best in school, but there were a few questions in Jing Yunjiao's homework that he didn't know how to answer. On the other hand, Jing Yunjiao had already picked out 3 mistakes before he even reached the school gate. Seeing that he was confused, she even explained it to him, causing him to blush. He always thought that Jing Yunjiao's reputation as the school's #1 was undeserved. After all, it was only half a semester into the first year of high school, and they were still competing in basic skills. In the past, when the teachers privately praised Jing Yunjiao, he would snort in disdain. But from last night until today, her grades made it impossible for anyone to refute. Seeing Gan Jinchen's embarrassed look, Jing Yunjiao pursed her lips and smiled. She didn't have any intention of showing off. She was never a genius in her studies. In her previous life, in order to gain the praise of her parents, she studied until late at night. The amount of time she slept could be counted on one hand. In addition, no one paid attention to her, so she had a lot of free time. Almost all of it was used on her homework. Under these circumstances, it was natural for her to get first place. And in this life, it was the same. She had never felt any sense of superiority because of her rebirth. Jing Yunjiao was tall and thin, and Gan Jinchen was also one of the top 10 school hunks in school. His appearance was clean and bright, and his smile was gentle and shy. In addition to the little lowly Suchu, the three of them attracted a lot of attention as soon as they entered the school gate. Jing Yunjiao, I have underestimated you in the past, and I apologize. But I want to ask you something. People say that you have a lot of boyfriends outside. Is that true? Gan Jinchen couldn't help but ask as they parted ways. He didn't have a good impression of Jing Yunjiao because of this. Suchu had a simple personality, and if Jing Yunjiao was involved with those messy people outside, it would inevitably affect his cousin. Jing Yunjiao frowned, and a trace of coldness flashed across his fair face. Does it matter? When everyone spoke ill of her, they thought it was just a small matter. Sometimes, she even forgot that she was the ugly person that others were talking about. How is it not related? Gan Jinchen's face immediately turned serious. I have nothing against you, but if the rumors are true, I hope you can be more careful when you interact with Suchu. Don't deliberately affect her. But if it's false, you should make it clear to everyone. How can your reputation be tarnished like this? What if it's fake? It's not like I haven't clarified it before. What's the point? Jing Yunjiao said casually. He grabbed his bag and turned to leave. After clarifying the old rumors, new ones would quickly appear. Even if Qiao Hongye didn't play tricks behind the scenes, as long as she was involved in some troublesome matters, the words outside would immediately change. This was a habit that had developed over a long period of time. Just like before, when the school helped her clarify the matter of her being harassed by those hooligans, the students' attitude towards her changed quite a bit. But when the matter with Lu Jia's cousin came out, they immediately avoided her like snakes and scorpions. And then there was the matter with young Tiantian a few days ago. Even if it wasn't her fault, there would always be people who linked it to her. Recently, there were people who said that she was a jinx behind her back. It wasn't that she didn't know. She nimbly turned around, causing a trace of disappointment to flash through Gan Jinchen's heart. But he also felt that he didn't say anything wrong. He pouted and returned to his class. Sis, you just went to school with Gan Jinchen? Jing Yunjiao hadn't even stepped through the door when his arm was pulled over. When he looked over, it was Qiao Hongye's gentle and sensible face. Chapter 82. Qiao Hongye had the appearance of a typical pretty daughter from a humble family. Her features were gentle, unlike Jing Yunjiao's sharp and awe-inspiring look. She wasn't very tall either. Although she looked a little fatter than Jing Yunjiao, she still had a normal figure. When she spoke slowly and softly, making her especially lovable. It could be said that the reason why Qiao Hongye was so famous in this school wasn't because of her second-place grades, nor was it because of her outstanding looks, but because of her temperament. When she was quiet, she was gentle and pleasant. When she was happy, she was shy and cute. When she was wronged, she was lovely and moving. She could always send a look of affection to others with her eyes. Of course, whenever she was alone with Qiao Hongye's elegant appearance would be somewhat broken. Jing Yunjiao also didn't know why this girl who grew up with her hated her so much. She had never fought with Qiao Hongye for anything in the Qiao family. At this moment, Qiao Hongye's gaze was gentle. After she pulled Jing Yunjiao over, she had a frightened and cautious attitude, as if Jing Yunjiao was bullying her. Is something the matter? Jing Yunjiao's expression was cold and indifferent. She really couldn't warm up to Qiao Hongye. Qiao Hongye bit her lips. It's nothing. It's just that I'm curious. Sister, why are you going to school with Gan Jinchen? Previously, when she saw Jing Yunjiao and Suchu getting close, she already didn't understand it. She didn't know if Jing Yunjiao had hooked up with Gan Jinchen through that silly girl Suchu. Jing Yunjiao found it funny. She reached out and pulled her arm out. Who I go to school with doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, right? There were so many inexplicable people in this world. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Qiao Hongye's face. She then pouted. Sister, aren't I just worried about you? Are you in a relationship? I heard that Gan Jinchen's father is a doctor and his mother is a businesswoman. His family can be considered to be quite rich. Most importantly, Gan Jinchen was good-looking, had good grades, and had one of the best temperaments in school. Qiao Hongye and Gan Jinchen naturally knew each other. There were only 2 people from the first year who were elected to the student council, and they were Qiao Hongye and Gan Jinchen. It was early in the morning, and there were people walking in and out of the classroom entrance. Qiao Hongye's voice was pleasant to the ears, so it naturally attracted the attention of others. Upon hearing this, many girls also stopped in their tracks and immediately joined in on the fun. Jing Yunjiao, are you dating Gan Jinchen? Is that true? A girl asked. Jing Yunjiao's face darkened. Qiao Hongye, is your brain filled with cement? I just happened to bump into Suchu and Gan Jinchen on the way. How can you say that we're dating? Jing Yunjiao shouted coldly. However, Qiao Hongye had a look of indifference, as if Jing Yunjiao's words were a joke. Aya, sister, it's all my fault for accidentally spilling the beans. I'm sorry. Okay, I won't talk nonsense anymore. Qiao Hongye deliberately winked. Her words made it seem as if it was true. This wasn't the first time such a scene had happened. Pretending to be clever and obedient was Qiao Hongye's best method. Countless similar scenes suddenly flashed through Jing Yunjiao's mind. Her tightly shut mouth slowly curved into a mocking smile. She looked at the disgusting girl in front of her and directly raised her hand to slap her. The sound of the slap shocked everyone in the surroundings. Qiao Hongye was also stunned. Jing Yunjiao actually dared to hit her? What right did she have to hit her? What right did she have? She was just a bastard who grew up under her family's charity. Chapter 83. Jing Yunjiao swung her hand, her sinister appearance somewhat frightening. Her lips curled into a cold smile as she squeezed out the words from between her teeth. I'm really sorry, I couldn't control myself and slapped you. I'm sorry, I won't be like this in the future. Do you think it's okay? Every time Qiao Hongye finished saying those words, she would have an innocent and apologetic attitude. If she didn't forgive her, it would seem that she was vicious and petty. In addition, she had Yi Qin as her backing in the past, so Qiao Hongye was even more unscrupulous. However, she was no longer the Jing Yunjiao of the past. Qiao Hongye widened her eyes, her tears falling freely. How could you hit me? You can spread rumors everywhere, why can't I teach you a lesson? My slap will only hurt you for a few minutes. You know very well how much trouble your words will bring me. Qiao Hongye, I've tolerated you in the past, but that doesn't mean that I'll let you do whatever you want in the future. Today is only a slap, but if I hear any bad words coming out of your mouth next time, I won't let you off. After Jing Yunjiao finished speaking, she proudly walked out from the middle of the girls. Her cold back made people feel a sense of fear. Even though they were all of the same age, it was undeniable that everyone felt that Jing Yunjiao was different from them. In the past, Jing Yunjiao gave people the feeling that she could be seen but not touched, forever excluded from the crowd. However, recently, she was cold and silent, but also confident and arrogant. Sometimes her sense of existence was still very low, silently studying and reading in her own world, not caring about the outside world. But sometimes, once her bottom line was touched, she would erupt like a volcano, her eyes filled with hatred and disgust, unreasonably cold. Qiao Hongye was still standing in front of the classroom door. Her lips were red from biting herself, her eyes were slightly swollen, and 2 streams of tears had not stopped. A few girls surrounded her to comfort her, but they didn't know what to say. Say that Jing Yunjiao was unreasonable? But they just told Qiao Hongye not to speak carelessly. After all, dating in school was a serious matter. If the teachers found out, they would also give them serious advice. Say that Jing Yunjiao was too violent. It was a little, but they didn't dare to mention it. Qiao Hongye's pitiful appearance caused many boys to be heartbroken. They wished they could teach Jing Yunjiao a lesson on behalf of Qiao Hongye. Especially Jiang Xia, who had just gotten close. The moment he went upstairs and saw Qiao Hongyi in such a state, he immediately panicked. Qiao Hongyi, why are you crying? Tell me who bullied you, I'll teach him a lesson for you. Qiao Hongye was his goddess. She was usually so gentle and cute when she smiled, but now there was actually someone who didn't have eyes to bully her to this extent. She was crying so hard. Was she beaten up or taken advantage of? Xiao Hongye shook her head repeatedly. She had some impression of Jiang Xia, who was standing in front of her. She knew that he was the class monitor of Class 1. Although he wasn't as famous as Gan Jinchen, he was still very handsome. Many girls liked him. Sometimes, when they saw her, they would greet her and even exchange a few words. Why are you shaking your head? Were you scolded by the teacher? Class hasn't started yet. How could Jiang Xia understand a girl's thoughts? Beside Xiao Hongyi, there were many boys and girls who acted as her protectors. When they saw that Xiao Hongyi was so aggrieved, they immediately said, "Isn't it Jing Yunjiao from your class?" Just now, Hongye only asked her if she was dating Gan Jinchen, and she actually hit our Hongye. Look at her face, it's all red from the slap. Chapter 84. Jiang Xia's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Xiao Hongye in a daze. Was it Jing Yunjiao who hit him? Aren't they sisters? Even though in Jiang Xia's heart, Jing Yunjiao was very insensible and didn't treat Xiao Hongye well, he had always believed that Jing Yunjiao had received the Qiao family's grace. Even if she was usually estranged from Xiao Hongye, she would still give in to her younger sister. Who would have thought that the truth was the complete opposite? Jiang Xia felt a little uneasy. Ever since he was beaten up by Jing Yunjiao, he had been avoiding Jing Yunjiao like the plague. Why would he take the initiative to provoke her? But now that Xiao Hongye was crying so sadly, his heart clenched. If he didn't find Jing Yunjiao to clarify things, wouldn't Xiao Hongye be very disappointed in him? Jiang Xia's heart was in a dilemma. Xiao Hongye despised this boy to the extreme. She wasn't blind, this person had expressed his friendliness to her several times. It couldn't be just to be a nodding acquaintance, he definitely liked her. To be able to make Jiang Xia, who was liked by so many girls, spend so much effort on her, she naturally felt proud. However, although she was very confident in her own charm, she was extremely disappointed in Jiang Xia. Did those girls who liked Jiang Xia have problems with their eyesight? Although this Jiang Xia was good-looking, he was just an idiot. He didn't even have the ability to stand up for a woman. He couldn't even be considered a man. Calling him trash was more like it. Is your face okay? Jiang Xia held back for a long time and didn't ask the main point. Xiao Hongye's heart felt stifled and she cried even harder. Jiang Xia was flustered. Then why don't I go buy some medicine for you? Xiao Hongye rolled her eyes countless times in her heart. She couldn't wait to throw this idiot down the stairs. Originally, Xiao Hongye thought that someone would be willing to stand up for her, but she didn't expect such a coward to come. Now that she had cried for a while, if she continued crying, other people's criticism of Jing Yunjiao would not increase. Instead, there would be people who would say that she was being pretentious. Acting had to stop at any moment. She could only wipe her tears and prepare to return to work. Xiao Hongye, don't go. I'll take you to the hospital for a checkup. Face is very important to a girl. This was his sweetheart. How could Jiang Xia allow Xiao Hong to leave disheartened? He had made up his mind to console his goddess. Xiao Hongye couldn't help but glare at him. Her emotions were a little restrained, and she instead looked like she was pouting playfully. You don't need to care. Jiang Xia's heart went numb. No, you got injured in front of my class. It's all my fault for not managing my classmates well. I will take responsibility for you. Let's go to the hospital. Look at your swollen face. It won't look good if we leave it like this. As Jiang Xia spoke, that hand of his was not well behaved. He could not help but reach out towards Xiao Hongye's face. As soon as his icy fingertips touched her, Xiao Hongye's eyes widened and she retreated a few steps. Don't touch me. This Jiang Xia must be doing this on purpose. Could it be that he wanted to spread some kind of rumor? Xiao Hongye herself often shot daggers behind people's backs, so she took the initiative to avoid things that could easily spread rumors. Although she had a good relationship with quite a few guys and there were many who chased after her, she never showed any intimate actions in front of others. Jiang Xia's current actions had clearly touched her bottom line. I mean, my face still hurts a little. Don't touch it. I don't need you to send me to the hospital. Xiao Hongye took a deep breath and restrained herself. Jiang Xia was originally a little self-righteous. At this moment, how could he feel that he had caused trouble for Xiao Hongye? Instead, he felt that Xiao Hongye was too kind and sensible. She must have been so polite because she didn't want to trouble him. Once he thought of sending Xiao Hongye to the hospital, not only could he serve his sweetheart, but he could also get a chance to be alone with her. Jiang Xia's eyes lit up. Chapter 85. Jiang Xia's temper was stubborn and self-centered. Unless he met someone like Jing Yunjiao or Xiao Haiqing, he would definitely do what he set his mind on until the end. Thus, the more Xiao Hongye refused, the more he wanted a yard after getting an inch. Unfortunately, in front of everyone, Xiao Hongye was destined to be unable to be tough. That gentle voice of hers was completely useless. The two of them argued for a while before Jiang Xia simply rushed into the office to help Xiao Hongye apply for a day's leave. Now that things had escalated to this point, Xiao Hongye could only helplessly compromise. However, in her heart, she was cursing Jiang Xia to death. The eyes of the crowd were not blind. Her face was only a little red. If she walked out of the school gates with this face, she was afraid that everyone would think that she was making a mountain out of a molehill. At this moment, Jing Yunjiao could clearly hear the commotion outside. He couldn't help but feel happy. In his previous life, Xiao Hongye wanted Jiang Xia to pursue her crazily. Fortunately, she did not agree. Otherwise, even if he was reborn, he would vomit to death when he saw Jiang Xia's conduct. Furthermore, looking at Xiao Hongye and Jiang Xia, one was self-righteous while the other was hypocritical. They were simply a match made in heaven. Xiao Hongye suffered a loss in silence. Being slapped was one thing, but the matter was left unsettled because she was dragged to the hospital. Not only that, Jiang Xia was always by her side. When they were in the hospital, even the doctor took a few more glances at her, making her feel even more embarrassed. Furthermore, Xiao Hongye used to think that Jiang Xia's character was not bad. However, on the way here today, he was being all over her. Although it was ambiguous, it was not overboard. This made her unable to voice out her bitterness. Furthermore, she was a girl after all. Her strength was not as great as Jiang Xia's. She could not struggle at all. Even the passers-by who saw this pointed at her and said that she had no self-respect at such a young age. However, Jing Yunjiao did not know what happened next. His attention was attracted by a big event that was about to happen. Huaning County was a county with many ancient relics. In his previous life, not long after, an antique dealer bought a piece of porcelain from a worker who didn't know anything about antiques for $1,000. The news was heard by a highly respected old man in Ning City. This old man loved collecting antiques. After appraising it, he discovered that the porcelain was a large blue and white porcelain jar from Ming Hongwu. He actually spent more than $20 million to buy it. After the news spread, Qiao Weimin kept lamenting that it was a pity. That was because the worker often held the blue and white porcelain jar and hawked it near the small market where Qiao Weimin had his breakfast. Not only did he see it with his own eyes, he even mocked the worker for being crazy for money, but later, he found out that an opportunity to make a fortune had fallen from the sky and passed him by. He regretted it so much that he couldn't sleep for a few nights. He mentioned it many times at home. Jing Yunjiao currently had 3 million yuan in savings. It wasn't a small amount, but it wasn't a lot either. Now that she had been reborn, this blue and white porcelain jar had yet to be bought by that foreign antique merchant. How could she let go of such an opportunity? As far as she knew, the worker had been in the market for more than a month. If she had arrived in the morning, she would have met him. Thinking of this, the corners of Jing Yunjiao's eyes carried a hint of a smile. After school that day, she took the bus back to Ning Town. However, by the time she reached her destination, the sky was already dark. She had no choice but to find a small hotel to stay the night and wait until the next morning to go to the small market. Jing Yunjiao's temporary hotel was right next to the small market. Looking down from the window, she could accurately see all the movements in the small market. Therefore, on the second day, Jing Yunjiao didn't go downstairs until the worker showed up with the item. Chapter 86. Jing Yunjiao had heard a lot about this worker from Qiao Weimin in his previous life. According to Qiao Weimin, after the worker sold the blue and white porcelain jar, someone went to find him. The worker was very angry at that time, but he couldn't find the antique dealer and could only keep it in his heart. It wasn't that he regretted the sale, but that he was in urgent need of money when he sold the jar. At that time, he asked for 200,000 yuan. Others thought he was a fool. Later, when the dealer came, he told him that the jar was fake. The merchant had a glib tongue and said a lot of things that the worker couldn't understand, making the worker think that the item in his hand was indeed a fake. In desperation, the merchant showed a sympathetic look and swindled the item with $1,000. After the jar was sold, the worker was very grateful to the dealer, who knew that in less than a month, the jar would be targeted by others and the price would rise to more than 20 million yuan. The worker was honest. He didn't covet the sky-high price, but only wanted his 200,000 yuan. Because of this, Jing Yunjiao didn't feel guilty about stealing the dealer's fortune. After getting closer, Jing Yunjiao stopped in front of the worker. He looked to be in his 50s or 60s. His skin was dark, his face was full of wrinkles, and his eyes seemed to be worried. His hands were holding the blue and white porcelain jar, as if he was afraid that someone would accidentally kick it down. His hands were rough and cracked. At first glance, it was obvious that he had worked hard for many years. His back was slightly bent, and his clothes were covered in a layer of dust. There were 2 shallow pits under his feet, and his shoes were stained with mud. "Uncle, do you want to sell this jar?" Jing Yunjiao asked. As soon as he said that, the people at the nearby breakfast stalls were attracted to him. Old Li had been hugging the large canned food in the small market for a month. There were people who had inquired about it, but when they heard the price, they all flinched. They didn't know much about antiques. They only knew that the jar was old and couldn't hold anything. At most, it could be used as a decoration. If it was a few dozen yuan, they could accept it. 200,000. Only a fool would buy it. However, usually, the people who asked were men above 40 years old. Why did a little girl appear today? Moreover, this girl looked familiar. If they weren't mistaken, she should be Qiao Weimin's eldest daughter. They heard that she was kicked out of the family. Was it true? Old Li had a good temper. "Little girl, my big jar is very expensive, it's useless for you to ask. Why don't you tell me the price first? I like this thing. If the price is right, I'll buy it," Jing Yunjiao said again. Old Li shook his head. This girl was a good person. She probably sympathized with him after seeing that he had been here for a long time. "I'm not lying to you. My wife is sick. I'm selling this to raise money for her treatment. It's 200,000 yuan. I won't sell it for a penny less." Old Li touched the big can and was reluctant to part with it. He had dug up this thing when he was young. At that time, no one dared to say anything. He had hidden it for 30 years. He didn't know the origin of this big jar, but he thought that the things in the ground should be good, so he wanted to give it to his son as a family heirloom. But he didn't expect his wife to be sick. He had been busy all his life and bought houses for his 2 sons, but he didn't have any assets left. He asked his sons for money, but both of his sons said that they were poor. After a few months of trouble, he still couldn't get half ahead from his sons. He had no choice but to take out the treasure that he had hidden for decades to exchange for money. However, the result also disappointed him. Not to mention these outsiders, even his own son said that he was whimsical and took the broken jar as a treasure. 200,000, is it? "Uncle, when the nearby bank opens, you can accompany me there. I'll transfer the money to you." When old Li was complaining to his 2 sons, Jing Yunjiao suddenly changed the topic. Chapter 87. Jing Yunjiao's simple words almost caused everyone's jaws to drop. Some people even laughed and pointed at Jing Yunjiao while shaking their heads. In the past, they had heard Qiao Weimin say that this girl was insensible. Now that they saw it, it was indeed the case. "Little girl, it's not 200,000 hell coins." Someone laughed loudly. Old Li hugged the big jar and refused to let go. He also felt a little embarrassed. Although he was honest, He couldn't be bullied by anyone, right? If the person in front of him wasn't a little girl, he would have reprimanded her. Jing Yunjiao ignored the person who mocked her. She took out a stack of paper from her bag and said, "If you find it troublesome to transfer money, I can also pay in cash. The money is all here. Can I take it away?" Originally, she thought that it would be safer to transfer money. After all, there were many people here. It was more or less dangerous to let this uncle carry such a large sum of money around. Real money? Instantly, the person who was mocking her stood up and almost choked on the bun in his mouth. Jing Yunjiao opened the stack of paper. There were 20 stacks of money neatly arranged inside. As if she was afraid that the other person would think that it was fake, she simply put it in the person's arms and held the jar in her hand, allowing the other person to inspect it. Although old Lee sold it for 200,000, he was dumbfounded when he actually sold it. The stack of red old people's notes in front of him made his eyes turn red. He trembled as he touched it. Every time he confirmed that it was real money, he felt that there was more hope for his wife's illness. However, when he recovered from his shock, he remembered that the owner of the 200,000 was a little girl. He sighed inwardly and said, "Although I lack money, I can't just take other people's money." "Little girl, I'm afraid your parents don't know. Uncle, don't worry. I have a clear source of the money. Moreover, I don't have parents. I can make my own decisions with my own money," Jing Yunjiao said. "Really?" Old Lee still didn't believe her. "There are quite a few people in this small market who know me. You can ask around and you'll know." She had clearly heard the whispers of the people just now. When he said that, many people nodded doubtfully. "Old Lee, since the lady has good intentions, you should accept the money. She used to be from the Chow family, but she's not their biological child." Later on, Chow Weimin chased her out of the house. Now, she's living on her own. This money definitely has nothing to do with Chow Weimin. The person who spoke had a good relationship with old Lee and knew about his family's situation. Jing Yunjiao felt a chill in his heart when he heard the words of being chased out of the house. Chow Weimin was a person who cared a lot about his face. He was afraid that he had deliberately said those words for others to hear. Then I'll really take it?" Old Lee asked carefully. Jing Yunjiao nodded. "Uncle, I heard that your wife is sick. Can I ask about her condition? I don't know much about those medical terms. I only know that my wife often has headaches. Not only does she feel dizzy every day, she can't sleep at night. The doctor doesn't recommend that she undergo surgery, so she usually relies on some medicine. However, the medicine is too expensive. If she doesn't take it, it will relapse and worsen. I have no other choice now. This 200,000 is barely enough to keep her stable for a period of time." Old Lee's face was gloomy as he sighed. Jing Yunjiao frowned slightly and nodded. She took out a piece of paper and wrote down Grandpa Gan's phone number. She wanted to say her name, but at her age, this person most likely wouldn't believe her. "This is a doctor I know. If you need help, you can ask him for help." Jing Yunjiao. "You little bitch, how dare you hide so much money behind my back?" Before he could finish speaking, a person rushed over from not far away. He was still 10 meters away, but he was already cursing. Chapter 88. Chow Weimin was wearing a jacket and slippers. His suit pants were wrinkled and his belt was not buckled. His face was oily, his short hair was like a bird's nest, and his beard was unshaven. This image shocked everyone who knew him. Although Chow Weimin was idle at home every day, he had always treated himself as a major shareholder. Every time he went out, he would tidy himself up and pretend to be profound when he spoke. Unlike today, he was like a hungover man on the street. Before he even got close to everyone, they could already smell the sour smell on his body. However, others did not know how shocked Chow Weimin was at this time. He just received a phone call and someone told him that Jing Yunjiao spent 200,000 to buy old Lee's broken jar. 200,000? How could this wretched girl have so much money? He was clear in his heart that the Chow family's savings were also in the millions, but all of this money was saved by him. Even if it was his son and daughter, they wouldn't be able to use the money, let alone Jing Yunjiao. The only possibility was that she had swindled her way to get it from the outside. Of course, he did not care about where the money came from. What he cared about was that this money should belong to the Chow family, but it was given to old Li? How could this be? Chow Weimin strode forward and rushed in front of Jing Yunjiao. He reached out to grab the blue and white porcelain jar in her hand. This broken jar is worth 200,000. I'll smash it. However, just as his fingertips felt the coolness of the porcelain shard, Jing Yunjiao moved her body to the side to avoid it. Chow Weimin only felt as if he had tripped over something and fell to the ground with a bang. Old Li was shocked and quickly went forward to support him. However, Chow Weimin was here for the money. He reached out to grab the oil paper treasure in his arms. Just as his hand touched something, his heart was filled with joy, but Jing Yunjiao pressed it back down. Robbery is punishable by jail time. Jing Yunjiao was expressionless. She secretly squeezed Chow Weimin's hand, causing Chow Weimin to howl. Unlucky girl, do you want to squeeze me to death? Let go. Chow Weimin gritted his teeth in pain. He was even more shocked. He didn't know that Jing Yunjiao had such great strength. He always felt that his bones were about to be crushed. However, on the surface, Jing Yunjiao's hands were slender, long, and fair. No one would believe that such a pair of hands could cause bone pain. Jing Yunjiao wasn't as obedient as Chow Weimin thought. The side of his hand pressed hard against Chow Weimin's wrist. Chow Weimin pulled back in pain. Jing Yunjiao then stuffed the oily paper treasure back into old Li's arms and pulled him back. Uncle, you have to keep an eye on this money. We've already made a deal, so this money is now yours. If someone tries to steal it from you, it's only right for you to report it to the police. This amount isn't small either. If you're sentenced, you'll have to spend quite a few years in jail, Jing Yunjiao threatened. Chow Weimin was so angry that he wanted to swallow Jing Yunjiao alive. How can the money be his? It's mine. Chow Weimin immediately shouted. When Jing Yunjiao heard this, she didn't get angry. Instead, she laughed. Yours? Are you sure you're not joking with me? The things she used in the past, the money she spent, which one of them wasn't earned by herself? Even if she really owed them, she had already paid them back after working for so many years in her previous life. How is it not mine? I can see now that you're an ungrateful wretch. Let everyone hear it. How much have I spent on your food, drink, and education all these years? It's fine if you don't know how to repay kindness, but you're still using your family's money to give to outsiders. Chapter 89. Chow Weimin said confidently, as if he felt that he had suffered a lot in order to raise Jing Yunjiao. That sincere look of his was somewhat intimidating. You said you paid for my schooling? Okay, then let's count. May I ask which year you paid my tuition fees for me? Don't tell me it was 8 or 9 years ago. Jing Yunjiao asked with a smile in her eyes. Chow Weimin was stunned. He wanted to refute, but he suddenly realized that apart from spending a portion of Jing Yunjiao's money during the first 3 years of primary school, he had never cared for her again. That's still raising you. Chow Weimin still didn't feel that he had done anything wrong. He paused and said, even if it's water or a meal, it's still a favor, isn't it? So that's also considered a favor. Jing Yunjiao's mouth curved, her eyes carrying an indescribable meaning. Since that's the case, then I'll be frank. If I remember correctly, I already knew how to do laundry and cook before I learned how to write. From the day I learned how to do it until the day I left the Chow family. All these years, if I didn't do it well, I would be beaten, but if I did it well, it's only natural. One year, I ruined Chow Hongye's favorite floral dress by washing it. You punished me by making me kneel on the balcony for an entire night. I fainted from a fever, but you woke me up with a basin of cold water and made me sick for a week. If it weren't for a neighbor who secretly gave me medicine, I might not even be alive now. To be exact, you raised me for 9 years, of which you paid for 3 years of my schooling. However, I was the Chow family's old maid for nearly 10 years. I was beaten and scolded for more than 10 years, and I almost never had enough to eat. Oh right, there's one thing I forgot to mention. Jing Yunjiao's voice was as light as dust. There should be some scars on my body. I don't know if I can sue you for child abuse in the past. Qiao Weimin and Yi Qin used to care about their face and were afraid of outsiders gossiping, so most of the time, they only let her suffer some superficial wounds that would heal after a few minutes of pain. However, when she was young, she wasn't convinced and made a fuss a few times, which angered Qiao Weimin. Qiao Weimin burned a few cigarette scars on her arm, and once kicked her leg, causing her to kneel with a knee full of glass shards. Even now, these scars were still a little shocking to look at. Hearing this, Qiao Weimin's expression changed. That's because you were naughty when you were young. Qiao Weimin immediately denied. Jing Yunjiao gave him a knowing look and glanced at him with disdain. Whether I did it or not, we all know in our hearts. There's no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. If you insist on going against me, then I can only work hard to find evidence. The corners of Qiao Weimin's mouth twitched. He was furious. Why are you so insensible? I'm your father. Don't, Mr. Qiao. You're not even my stepfather, let alone my biological father. In order to ensure my happiness, didn't the leaders of the town and the school happily decide to separate me? You said outside that you kicked me out of the house, and I won't argue with you. But since we have nothing to do with each other anymore, please don't rush for money when you see it. Jing Yunjiao didn't give him face and directly told him the truth. As soon as she said this, everyone understood. It turned out that Qiao Weimin didn't kick Jing Yunjiao out of the house, but that the school found out about Qiao Weimin's abuse of his daughter. To be precise, the Qiao family was the one that was kicked out. The town was only so big, and everyone had heard a little about some things. It was no secret that the Qiao family was biased towards their children, but they didn't expect it to be so serious. Looking at Jing Yunjiao, she was so thin that she looked like she could be blown away by a gust of wind. It wasn't unbelievable that she didn't eat enough in the past. Chapter 90. The people in this small town were simple and honest. If Qiao Weimin was really just simply educating his children, no one would think that there was anything wrong with it. However, when things developed to the extent of abuse, almost no one could understand. Although she wasn't his biological daughter, how old was this little girl? How could he bear to do it? Old Qiao, this is your fault. If this girl's biological parents come looking for you, how are you going to explain it to them? Someone immediately said with dissatisfaction. If their daughter had been ordered around by someone from a young age, they would fight for justice even if it meant risking their lives. Although the kindness of raising a child was greater than the heavens, how could Qiao Weimin's actions be considered as raising a child? It was more like torture. Qiao Weimin didn't expect Jing Yunjiao to be so eloquent. With just a few words, she had changed the way others looked at him. He immediately changed the topic. Don't listen to this girl's nonsense. If she was sensible, would I have hit her? Also, she's just a 15-year-old girl, but she took out 200,000 yuan in one go. If this money wasn't stolen, then it must have been earned through improper means. 200,000 yuan. The small factory he ran with others was profitable, but the money he received every year was probably less than this amount. Jing Yunjiao didn't say much. She reached into her bag and took out a ginseng. With a thought, she took out a ginseng from her space. Since you said so, I don't mind explaining it clearly. This is a wild ginseng I dug up by chance. The other one has already been sold. This 200,000 yuan is the money I earned from selling it. You can go to some pharmacies and ask how much this kind of wild ginseng is worth. It'll be clear whether I'm lying or not. The reason why Jing Yunjiao said this was to prevent herself from being entangled with similar troubles in the future. The value of this blue and white porcelain jar wasn't low. If it were to be exposed one day like in her previous life, people would definitely suspect that a child like her wouldn't have so much money to buy it. Rather than letting others spread false rumors, it was better for her to clarify things first. There was a barren mountain in Ningxiang town. Many years ago, it was said that someone had found ginseng there. Her reason was the most reasonable. As soon as the item was taken out, anyone could tell that it was a genuine treasure. Their eyes were fixed on it, especially Qiao Weimin, who subconsciously reached out to take it. Unfortunately, Jing Yunjiao instantly stuffed it back into his bag. Uncle, Can you take the money without worry now? Jing Yunjiao ignored Qiao Weiman and turned to look at Old Li. Old Li hurriedly nodded. Little girl, thank you very much. I don't know where this big can came from, but I don't think it's fake. After that, he glanced at Qiao Weiman and quickly walked to the bank with the money. There were so many people here. It would be bad if the money was robbed. Jing Yunjiao naturally wouldn't stay any longer after obtaining the item. He hugged the blue and white porcelain jar and tried to leave. Daughter. Qiao Weiman stepped forward and stopped her. Since you're already here, why don't you go home for a meal? The hypocritical smile made Jing Yunjiao feel a little nauseous. We've been together for so many years. What do you mean that I don't understand? If you want ginseng and money, just say it. Who are you putting on an act for? Do you think I'm stupid enough to believe that you're really good to me? In her previous life, if it wasn't for the fact that he didn't act like an elder and tried to force her to submit, she wouldn't have killed someone by accident. At this moment, Qiao Weiman was extremely close to Jing Yunjiao. He could only smell a whiff of medicinal fragrance. Looking at the fair and clean figure in front of him, he was momentarily dazed. Jing Yunjiao was instantly enraged. She couldn't be more familiar with Qiao Weiman's wretched gaze. Scram! She shouted coldly. Her eyes instantly exploded with a chill, as if she wanted to kill the man in front of her again. Chapter 91. Jing Yunjiao's mind flashed with the scene of her killing in her previous life. Her body tensed up and hatred emerged in her mind. However, this emotion didn't last long. The blue and white porcelain jar in her hand was suffused with a chill, which made her slowly calm down. This wasn't her previous life. She wouldn't end up like that. How can you talk to me like that? This was the first time Qiao Weiman saw Jing Yunjiao's attitude. Her eyes looked like she wanted to eat someone. It actually made him feel a moment of fear. Fear? Jing Yunjiao was just a stinky girl. What could she do to him? What could she do to him? Jing Yunjiao restrained her emotions and glanced at Qiao Weiman with disgust. She walked past him without stopping. Qiao Weiman still wanted to stop her, but Jing Yunjiao waved her hand fiercely. Qiao Weiman's feet instantly became weak and he staggered to the ground. He could only let her walk away with big strides. You bastard, you dare to touch me? I bet your wings have hardened. You just wait for me. I will make you kneel back and admit your mistake one day. Bitch, if I don't punish you, you'd better not fall into my hands. Looking at Jing Yunjiao's back, Qiao Weiman began to curse behind her. The people behind him were speechless. When Qiao Weiman turned around, they all turned their heads and pretended not to know him. In the past, although Qiao Weiman was a bit arrogant, he looked like a decent person. They didn't expect him to be such a scoundrel. He didn't even let a child go. How could they have a deep relationship with such a person? It was better to stay away from him in the future. What if they were cheated by him? Qiao Weiman caught a chicken but ended up losing the rice used to lure it. Not only did he not get the money, but he was also isolated. This town was only so big. In the blink of an eye, there would be people gossiping behind his back. Qiao Weiman became angrier and angrier at the thought of people pointing at him behind his back. He couldn't stay in this town any longer. That day, he directly went to the county. Jing Yunjiao got on the earliest bus and wasn't late. She also stored the blue and white porcelain jar in her space. It was very safe. When it was close to noon, Qiao Weiman arrived at the school gate. Ever since he caused a ruckus, the security guards took note of him. Now that they saw him, all the security guards rushed over to prevent any accidents. Qiao Weiman was a bully. Compared to before, he was much more polite. Brothers, there was a misunderstanding last time. I'm not here to cause a ruckus. I'm here to look for my daughter. The school has already informed us that you and Jing Yunjiao aren't father and daughter. If you insist on looking for her, that's fine. But you have to do it right under our noses. You also have to explain what's going on first. The security guards were deliberately targeting him. No, my daughter is Qiao Hongye from class 2. She's my biological daughter. He felt a little embarrassed in his heart. Who would guard against him like he was a thief in the past? It was all because of that wild girl. The security guards looked at him suspiciously and called the teachers to check. After confirming it, they then informed Xiao Hongye to come out and meet him. Seeing that it was almost time for school to end in the afternoon, Xiao Hongye heard that Xiao Weiman was here. Her face didn't look too good. Many students saw her father when he caused a ruckus. If she went out now, wouldn't everyone see her standing with her father when school ended? But Xiao Hongye cared about her face. Seeing the teacher's eager gaze, she stood up politely. She ran to the school gate as if she was escaping. Without saying anything, she dragged Xiao Weiman to a corner where he wasn't too conspicuous. "Dad, why are you looking for me in such a hurry?" Xiao Hongye's face was sincere. Her attitude was obedient and sensible. Chapter 92. Although the way Xiao Hongye dragged him to hide was a little weird, thinking about Jing Yunjiao's attitude towards him in the morning, Xiao Weiman felt that his biological daughter was the most considerate. This is how a girl should be. Xiao Weiman puffed out a mouthful of smoke and threw the cigarette butt on the ground. Only then did he speak. "What's going on with Jing Yunjiao?" Xiao Hongye was stunned. "What's wrong with sister?" "Don't call her sister. That bastard is not worthy." Xiao Weiman snorted coldly. "Your classes are just separated by a wall. Why don't you tell me if she's doing something? Today, that bastard ran to town with 200,000 to buy old Li's broken jar." 200,000. Xiao Hongye suddenly exclaimed. "Impossible. How could she have so much money?" "Dad, did you give her money before?" Almost instantly, Xiao Hongye felt that her parents were too good to Jing Yunjiao. She and Xiao Zizhou were her parents' biological children, but she didn't even know how much savings they had at home. Usually, she would only have a few hundred yuan for living expenses, but Jing Yunjiao actually cheated them of so much money. Was her father stupid? How could he give Jing Yunjiao money? 200,000, it was enough to buy a small house in town. Xiao Hongye's gaze was filled with suspicion and her expression was very wronged. Xiao Weiman was so angry that he rolled his eyes. "That money wasn't from me." She dug up 2 wild ginseng and sold one. "I estimate that it should be worth at least 4 to 500,000. Otherwise, she wouldn't have used 200,000 to buy a broken jar." When the ginseng was mentioned, Xiao Weiman's heart was very itchy. How could such a good thing fall into Jing Yunjiao's hands? The heavens were too blind. When Xiao Hongye heard that, her thoughts were exactly the same as Xiao Weiman's. The jealousy in her heart was like a raging sea. Her mind was blank and her ears were buzzing, as if someone was laughing at her non-stop. "Look, Jing Yunjiao is living a better life after leaving home. She's no longer your family's slave. You can't even count as a finger of hers. How could this be?" Xiao Hongye thought in a daze. After a while, she opened her mouth. "Dad, did she take out the money at the market? Did the people at the small market know about it? If that was the case, there would be a lot of people laughing behind their back." Xiao Weiman sighed. "What a waste of money. If you had informed me earlier, I wouldn't have lost 200,000 for nothing." "Dad, why are you still feeling pity for elder sister R? She has money, yet she doesn't even use it to show filial piety to you. What she did was wrong. Sorry for her. I'm sorry for myself. This money is mine, I can't let it go. Tell me, where is? What's your routine when you go out?" Xiao Weiman asked again. This question was stumped. Although the rumors were like that, she didn't know the actual situation. But now that she thought about it carefully, Xiao Hongye suddenly had some idea. She's been going to school with a girl called Suchu. They're both walking, so she should be living in a neighborhood near the school. Don't go home this week. Find out where she's living and find out the routine of the people living with her. If Dad can bring back the unsold ginseng, I'll send you to the province's dance class. Dad will buy you anything you want," Xiao Weiman said with a burning gaze. Chapter 93. After Xiao Weiman finished explaining everything and left, Xiao Hongye's mood was a little irritable. Originally, she could have gone on a spring outing with her friends this week, but in the end, her good time was ruined because of Jing Yunjiao. Especially when she thought about how Jing Yunjiao spent 200,000 to buy a lousy jar, her whole person became very depressed. Hongye, why are you unhappy? Could it be that something happened at home? After Xiao Hongye returned to school, she showed a depressed look, which immediately attracted the attention of her small circle. Xiao Hongye pursed her lips and shook her head. That hesitant attitude of wanting to say something actually aroused the protective desire of her surrounding companions. Did Jing Yunjiao say something in front of your father? Someone asked. Everyone around Xiao Hongye knew that Jing Yunjiao was a dove occupying a magpie's nest. She was also a scheming woman who always bullied Xiao Hongye at home. It was just that Xiao Hongye was kind-hearted and endured all the grievances in her heart without saying anything. If it wasn't for Jing Yunjiao affecting her, the school's #1 title would still belong to someone else. Xiao Hongye hurriedly shook her head and said carefully, "It's not like that. Dad is worried about big sister's safety. You guys also know that she ran away from home. We don't even know where she's living now. Our whole family is worried that she'll meet some bad people. We really don't feel at ease. So it's about this matter. If you didn't mention it, I would have almost forgotten. Didn't Jing Yunjiao appear together with Suchu and Gan Jinchen the day before yesterday? Actually, they should be living together. I saw the three of them coming out of Warm Heart Garden. On the way, Jing Yunjiao and Gan Jinchen were talking and laughing. They really know how to seduce people," one of the girls said. Because of Xiao Hongye, the surrounding friends hated Jing Yunjiao to the core. They didn't even dare to believe that there could be such a vicious and evil person in the world. Xiao Hongye was stunned and stifled another wave of anger. Jing Yunjiao really had something going on with Gan Jinchen. As one of the most handsome men in the school, Gan Jinchen received a lot of attention. Both of them were members of the student union, but during this period of time, she didn't see Gan Jinchen give her any special treatment. She originally thought that Gan Jinchen's character was so unreasonable, so she didn't take it to heart. After all, although Gan Jinchen didn't like her, there were many people who liked her. But now that Gan Jinchen and Jing Yunjiao were together, she was somewhat unwilling. How was she inferior to Jing Yunjiao? Why could Gan Jinchen see Jing Yunjiao but not her? Jing Yunjiao was indeed good-looking, but that was clearly a cold and distant face. Shouldn't boys like gentle and cute girls? Xiao Hongye's face paled slightly. The two of them lived together? Then there wouldn't be anything, right? It's over. If Dad finds out, he'll be worried to death. Sister is still young, what if? Halfway through her sentence, Xiao Hongye shut her mouth. But the rest of her words were naturally filled in by the others' imaginations. Gan Jinchen was so handsome, how could Jing Yunjiao not take the initiative? They were still so young, what if she got pregnant? Naturally, they ignored Suchu who lived with them. Seeing the other people's expressions change, Xiao Hongye immediately corrected herself. Don't think too much, I just said something wrong in a moment of impulse. If my sister finds out that I thought of her like that, she'll beat me to death. At that moment, the crowd once again linked the word violent to Jing Yunjiao. The crowd immediately fell silent, but their little universe of justice was practically ignited. The effect that Xiao Hongye wanted had obviously been achieved. This kind of rumor always spread very quickly. After lunch, the two people involved in this matter had already heard the news. Gan Jinchen was ashamed and angry. Saying that he made Jing Yunjiao pregnant was too much nonsense. Until now, he had only spoken a few words with Jing Yunjiao. Chapter 94. Gan Jinchen never thought that one day, he would remind Jing Yunjiao to pay attention to his reputation, and the next day, he would become the male lead of a rumor. Although he didn't like to be too close to girls in the past, at his age, he still had some vanity in his heart and would more or less care about how the opposite sex looked at him. But now, the girls in the class looked at him as if they were looking at a virus. Gan Jinchen, I didn't expect you to be such a person. To think that I used to like you. During class, a girl walked up to Gan Jinchen with red eyes and turned around to leave after saying this sentence, leaving Gan Jinchen stunned on the spot. Most girls in their prime were simple, and there weren't many people like Xiao Hongye who had a twisted mind. Many girls only felt that their beautiful one-sided love was splashed with a layer of disgusting ink, polluting their pure feelings. Gan Jinchen wanted to cry but had no tears. The surrounding gossips came one after another, and it was as if they were going to swallow him whole. Even a guy like him couldn't stand those words, let alone a girl like Jing Yunjiao. After enduring for a period, Gan Jinchen still couldn't control his emotions and directly rushed to Jing Yunjiao's class. Standing at the door of the class, he looked at Jing Yunjiao, who was quietly studying with his head down as if there was no one around. Gan Jinchen suddenly panicked. Before he came, he thought a lot about it and even thought that Jing Yunjiao would cry bitterly. Who knew that when he arrived, he would find out that it was the opposite. Jing Yunjiao sat in the middle seat in the front, and there were people pointing and talking about dirty things around him. Especially when they found out that he had arrived, there were even some boys behind him who whistled. But Jing Yunjiao was still writing and drawing on his paper. His concentrated look gave him an indescribable feeling. Yunjiao, that brat is coming. Xiao Haiqing nudged Jing Yunjiao and winked. Xiao Haiqing didn't believe this so-called rumor. After all, although Gan Jinchen was good-looking and had a good family background, he was still too young. How could Jing Yunjiao like him? Moreover, he couldn't sit still so quickly because of this rumor. Couldn't he talk about it later? Now that he had appeared at the entrance of their class, it was obvious that he wanted the rumors to become more and more intense. Jing Yunjiao raised his head and frowned. She had experienced too many rumors, and this wasn't the worst one at all, so she was quite calm. He lifted his foot and walked out. His expression was still calm as he said softly, "You're here because of what others said, right? I'm sorry, they should be targeting me. I've implicated you." Gan Jinchen didn't expect Jing Yunjiao to say this. He didn't know many girls, and the one he was most familiar with was his cousin, Su Chu. He was sure that if the same thing happened to his cousin, she would definitely cry until her eyes were swollen. Then, with snot and tears, she would complain about those gossipers. She might even ask for a leave of absence or even transfer schools out of sadness and fear. Jing Yunjiao's attitude clearly didn't seem like a girl's. Did he have a heart? Did he not have any emotions? What's wrong with you? Why would someone hurt you so badly behind your back? Gan Jinchen was very angry and asked subconsciously. He wasn't blaming Jing Yunjiao, but he felt that the person behind this was too sinister. Couldn't Jing Yunjiao be more alert? Jing Yunjiao pursed his lips and thought for a while. I'll take care of this matter, but it might take some time. Don't worry, I guarantee that your reputation won't be affected too much. Qiao Hongye was really too much. This time, it was really hard to tolerate. Chapter 95. Gan Jinchen was stunned. He suddenly realized that his words were a little harsh, so he quickly corrected himself. I'm not targeting you. Gan Jinchen mocked himself as he said this. It was useless to say these things now. Besides, the two of them were as eye-catching as gorillas. He had done more than one impulsive thing. He shouldn't have come looking for Jing Yunjiao. How do you want to deal with it? Gan Jinchen only felt bitterness in his mouth. He didn't trust Jing Yunjiao that much. If she could really deal with these rumors, her reputation wouldn't be so bad, right? You just have to wait and see the results. Jing Yunjiao's words were concise and comprehensive. Her nimble words made people unable to make heads or tails of them, but Gan Jinchen saw her clear and bright eyes and inexplicably felt more at ease, so he could only nod. Before he left, he wanted to comfort Jing Yunjiao a little, but when he saw her expressionless face, he swallowed the words in his mouth and couldn't say anything. How could there be such a strange person in this world? When facing Su Chu, Jing Yunjiao was clearly very gentle. Could it be that she hated him? How was it? What did that guy say? As soon as Gan Jinchen left, Xiao Haiqing asked with an arm around his shoulder. Jing Yunjiao's eyes were a little gloomy. Haiqing, I need a few people. Xiao Haiqing looked at Jing Yunjiao's serious attitude and immediately frowned. Tell me, I have a lot of friends outside. What kind of people do you want? Jing Yunjiao asked for people from her, so it couldn't be anyone else other than the hooligans outside. She wasn't considered a rich young lady. Although her family was well off, her mother had passed away less than 3 years ago. Her father remarried and relied on that woman to build up the family business. Now that her career was on the rise, She naturally didn't have time to care about her. Her stepmother didn't treat her badly, but she was left to her own devices. She gave her enough money but didn't let her go home. She made a lot of friends outside, but most of those friends made others feel ashamed, so she never told Jing Yunjiao about these things. Although she didn't say it, Jing Yunjiao knew in her heart. Not only her, but most of the other students also knew that Xiao Haiqing was not to be trifled with. They just didn't dare to say anything bad about her. Forget about the ones you know, just a few hooligans. Just give me their numbers. Don't contact them, Jing Yunjiao said. Since she wanted to do it, she wouldn't leave any evidence that would be used against her and the people around her. Xiao Haiqing nodded in understanding. I do have a suitable candidate in mind, nicknamed Hua Zei. He's greedy for money, but he's also quite righteous. If he promises something, he'll definitely do it. His trustworthiness isn't bad, but he's more open-minded. To put it bluntly, he's ruthless. As long as you give him enough money, he'll dare to do anything. However, if you cause a huge commotion, he'll definitely send people to investigate your identity. To put it bluntly, it was best not to be too bloody. Jing Yunjiao didn't think of doing anything too outrageous. After all, she had been in prison in her previous life, so she knew what it was like. Now that she didn't have her own strength, she wouldn't put herself in too much danger for such a small matter. What she wanted was to give her a taste of her own medicine. Qiao Hongye ruined her reputation, so she wanted Qiao Hongye to slowly experience the rumors and slanders she had experienced in her previous life. She wanted to take away one of the things she cared about the most. Jing Yunjiao agreed, and Xiao Haiqing left her a phone number. That night, Jing Yunjiao disguised herself and bought an anonymous SIM card. After dialing, a hoarse male voice came through. Hello, is this Hua Zei? I have a job, do you want to take it? Jing Yunjiao's voice had a bit of magnetism to it. It wasn't very sharp, and she deliberately lowered her voice. Although it sounded young, one couldn't tell if the person was male or female. Chapter 96. From the other party's voice, Jing Yunjiao could roughly guess that this person should be around 30 years old. He had a bit of a hooligan's temperament. He took a puff of smoke, and the sound of smoke rings could be heard from the other side of the phone. Tell me about your target. Hua Zei's attitude was leisurely, with a hint of playfulness. Just a female student. I just want you to harass her and take some simple photos. Jing Yunjiao replied. You don't need to go further. Hua Zei was obviously not interested in this kind of request. It was just a small matter, and probably wouldn't cost much. How could Jing Yunjiao not understand the other party's meaning? Although she had a grudge with Qiao Hongye, if she did what Hua Zei said, it wouldn't benefit her at all. Thus, she directly rejected, no need. Do as I say. 20,000 down payment. After the deed is done, I'll give you another 30,000. With these words, the other party was stunned for a moment. In the next second, Jing Yunjiao no longer heard the sound of smoking. Okay, send me the target's information via text message. Jing Yunjiao straightforwardly hung up the phone and completed Hua Zei's request. After receiving the other party's confirmation message, she transferred the money. However, Jing Yunjiao didn't know that at this moment, Hua Zei was looking at Qiao Hongye's name on the phone with a playful expression. His gaze was playful, and his mouth was making TSK sounds. Brother Hua is so happy. There's a good job. The man beside him leaned over and stretched his head out to take a look. He was also amused. Yo, isn't this Cao Xing's little girlfriend? Cao Xing, that fellow, has been hiding for a long time. If it weren't for morality, we would have found this little girl long ago. What, are you going to break your vow now? Although they had done many immoral things, for the sake of safety and for the sake of their conscience, they rarely laid their hands on students unless someone offered a high price. However, Cao Xing had repeatedly made a move because of this Qiao Hongye. Later on, he even brought a few of his brothers to the school gate to threaten a female student. If he had succeeded, it would have been fine. Not only would he have lost his life and money, he even sent his brothers to prison. And Cao Xing had also gone into hiding. If it weren't for his property being controlled, that person would have long run away. What vow? This is the employer's target. 50,000 just to harass her and take some photos. Only a fool wouldn't accept it. Hua Zei rolled his eyes at the other party. We'll take action on Monday morning. This brat treats us brothers like mules. We'll take this opportunity to teach her a lesson. At this moment, in a small hotel, Qiao Hongye sneezed violently. Today was Friday, the time to go home and relax, but because of Qiao Weiman's request, she stayed in the county town. She was also worried about being noticed by her classmates, so she could only find a small hotel near Wenshin Garden to stay. Bang! 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 Someone suddenly knocked on the door. Qiao Hongye's heart skipped a beat. Who would come in the middle of the night? He carefully moved to the door, only to hear a familiar voice from outside. Open the door, it's me, Kaoxing. Why is he here? The hooligans from before had been arrested for obstructing Jing Yunjiao. Only Kaoxing had escaped. She thought that everything would be fine since Kaoxing was no longer around. Why was he still in the county? And even found her? Qiao Hongye couldn't help but panic. However, she knew clearly that Kaoxing had a bad temper. If she was provoked, who knew what he would do? Therefore, Qiao Hongye still opened the door in a fluster. How did you know I was here? Qiao Hongye asked fearfully. Kaoxing's face was unshaven. After entering the room, he immediately closed the door. I've been watching you for a few days. I don't usually have the chance to find you. Fortunately, you didn't come home today. Qiao Hongye panicked. A few days. Then she had been followed by Kaoxing all this time. Chapter 97. Qiao Hongye felt goosebumps all over her body. She looked at Kaoxing with eyes full of fear. Although she was very familiar with Kaoxing, with such a person secretly watching her, she felt no sense of security. Moreover, he was a little perverted. Why are you looking at me like that? Why don't you think about how I ended up in this state? If I'm caught, do you think you'll still be fine? Kaoxing coldly snorted. The face under his head of yellow hair was completely exposed. Qiao Hongye only felt that he was disgusting, but he was right. She really couldn't do anything to Kaoxing. She and Kaoxing were both from Ningxiang town. When she was harassed in middle school, Kaoxing helped her. Since then, they had never broken contact. In the past, she asked Kaoxing to send people to secretly rob Jing Yunjiao or scare her from time to time. Later, when Jing Yunjiao entered high school, she asked Kaoxing to help spread rumors. However, she didn't expect to fall for it this time. Qiao Hongye took a deep breath and tried to control her wildly beating heart. What do you want to do? I have no money to spend. Lend me some first. Kaoxing was straightforward. Actually, Kaoxing's looks were not bad, but his face was average. The only thing that left a deep impression was the earrings on his ears and his head of yellow hair. Qiao Hongye was so angry that she trembled. I'm still a student, where would I get money? Qiao Hongye was indeed not lying. When Yi Qin was still alive, she loved Qiao Hongye dearly and never lacked her pocket money. Especially when she was in high school, other people at most got 300 or 400 yuan a month, but she mostly got close to 1,000 yuan a month. But Yi Qin was dead. Qiao Weiman was a man and didn't care about his children as much as Yi Qin. Her living expenses had already dropped to 500 yuan. To others, it was not a small amount, but to Qiao Hongye, she couldn't buy many things that she wanted to buy. You have no money. Who are you trying to fool? Although your father isn't a big boss, he at least invested in a small factory. The dividends he receives every year are not small. You're also the little princess of your family. How can you not have money? If you were Jing Yunjiao, I would definitely believe you. But you're Qiao Hongye. Even if you really have no money, you have all kinds of ways to get money. Kaoxing's face was full of certainty. He had known Qiao Hongye for quite a few years. This girl's schemes were even more formidable than a honeycomb briquette. Qiao Hongye only felt stifled in her chest. She couldn't help but throw a tantrum. Kaoxing, you think too highly of me. It's not like you don't know that my mother just passed away. My father is so selfish. Why would he care about me? All the money at home has been hidden by Dad. Even if I wanted to steal it, I wouldn't be able to. Anyway, I don't care. Who are Zai's men are watching my belongings? That guy is more vicious than me. I can't afford to offend him now. If you don't help me now, I can only go to the police station and stay there. At least there will be food and drink, right? Cao Xing threatened. Qiao Hongye's eyes reddened in anger. That's right, she still couldn't resist. She couldn't let Jing Yunjiao go to the police station. Otherwise, her reputation would be ruined. Although she made Jing Yunjiao a rat, it didn't mean that she was willing to live the same life as him. I do have an idea, as long as you're willing. Qiao Hongye thought for a while. Seeing Cao Xing raise his head in interest, she gathered her courage and said, Jing Yunjiao is rich. Heh. Qiao Hongye, do you think I'm a fool? Cao Xing mocked her immediately. If the person he was facing wasn't Qiao Hongye, he would have slapped her directly. I don't. Just listen to me and you'll know. Qiao Hongye struggled with a red face. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.